Okay. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Committee of the Whole meeting of Osoyoos Town Council, Tuesday, July the 15th, 2025 at 9 a.m. in Council Chambers. So first of all, we need to have a motion to approve the agenda, and I don't think there are any late items. No. Thank you. Councillor Bennett, Councillor King, all in favor. Thank you. And the adoption of some minutes, that would be the Committee of the Whole minutes from June the 24th. Could we have a motion to adopt those, please? Councillor Chong, Councillor Poderica, all in favor. Thank you. So we have a couple of delegations this morning, and first of all, I would like to welcome the Okanagan Regional Library presentation by Danielle Hubbard, who's the CEO. And I want to point out that I have on my library pin right now, which says "Libraries Change Lives." And I understand that because my Bachelor of Arts degree is in education and library science. So I'm very much a positive library person. So welcome to Town Council. Go ahead, please.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that lovely introduction. That was a much warmer and more personal introduction than I was expecting, so thank you. Thank you so much to Mayor and Council for making time for us this morning. I know you have a lot to discuss. So as was mentioned, my name is Danielle Hubbard. I'm the CEO of the Okanagan Regional Library. And I also have Joanne with me, who's the community librarian here in Osoyoos, who's really the face of the library. You kind of are the ORL in Osoyoos. So I'm going to take about 7 minutes just to talk about some of the services and initiatives that we offer as the ORL to all of our communities that I think really illustrate the value that public libraries bring. And then I'm going to pass the mic over to Joanne for approximately 3 minutes to talk about what's happening here in town. And then we're happy to take questions or comments. So where should I point this to? Oh, nice. Okay. I should also say I came out last year and did a very introductory presentation. I had just started as CEO a year and a half earlier. And so at that time, I talked a lot about funding and governance structure, and hopefully that was informative, but I wanted to make this year's presentation a little bit more lively. So I'm going to start with Summer Reading Club. Which is system-wide our #1 program that we offer. So it's in full swing right now for the months of July and August. Kids can come into any one of our 30 branches. They sign up, they get a reading record, they keep track of their reading, and they get prizes when they hit certain milestones. So it's really like a learning incentive program to help combat the learning slump that can sometimes happen over the summer. And last year, the theme was World of Curiosities. This year, the theme is Color Your World. So it's just like a creative umbrella that staff then work within to plan programs and activities. And this year, our feature presenter is Leif David. He's a magician who's worked with us before, and he does kind of like a magic that ties in with the theme show at each of our branches. So I provided a few stats here from 2024. To me, these are exciting stats because all of them are growth statistics. So in 2024, we saw a 35% increase in participation in Summer Reading Club. And that takes into account over the COVID years, there was, of course, a slump in participation because people couldn't come out to in-person programs. But at this point, we're 35% higher than we were pre-COVID even. And again, from 2024, over 8,000 kids registered for the program, and just under 29,000 kids and parents came out to programs. So to Leif David, to Story Times, to Bubble Man, a whole bunch of different presenters who come in and wow kids over the summer. And all of those were records for the ORL, which is exciting for us. The second initiative or service, I guess I wanted to highlight is our electronic resources. So I think for most people, when you think of libraries, you think of books, and we do have thousands and thousands of books, I'm proud to say. But we've also seen a real increase in use of electronic resources. So most of those are ebooks, e-audiobooks, things that people can listen to or read from their phones or tablets, wherever in the world they are, by having an ORL library card. And we really saw a kickoff in stats of e-resources during COVID, but then maybe surprisingly, maybe not surprisingly, those usage stats have continued to grow post-COVID. So I think it reflects that people are reading and learning and accessing information in a bit of a different way, probably not a surprise to anyone. And again, pulled some stats here. So these are again from 2024. That we circulated just under 800,000 digital books, so things that you would read off of your device. And that was an 8.6 increase from 2023. And then audiobooks, which is of course a different way of reading or different way of learning, almost 500,000 downloads and listens last year, which was a 23% increase. And then digital magazines surprised me because I personally am not a magazine reader, and I know a lot of print magazines are not being printed anymore. So I was amazed to see that last year was actually a 61% increase in people downloading magazines and newspapers through our online subscriptions. So again, I think that just shows people are accessing information in a different way. And I'm really proud that as a library, we're able to give people access to those resources. Third point I wanted to highlight is we've recently introduced a new collection in the last few years called Library of Things. So again, there's physical books, there's e-resources, and then we have kits that are more interactive and support sort of alternative forms of literacy and other areas of learning. So some of the examples that are shown on this slide, there's an outdoor activity kit, the one with the beach ball and the hula hoop. There's a, a dental hygiene kit that has a mouth. There's a radon detection kit that's always checked out over the summer. Telescope, or a microscope, I should say. A number of different robotic sort of STEM and STEAM learning kits. And then at the moment, we have 22 different unique kits, of course, with multiple copies each. And last year, they were borrowed just under 2,000 times. Right now, we have one staff member responsible for the collection. So probably with time, that's going to need to increase or get rearranged. And then I have a quick show and tell, because I don't know if you always get show and tell during council presentations. So I brought one of our newer kits. It's the Lego Braille kit. So I'm going to really try not to dump it all on the floor. So the Lego Braille kit contains a key that depicts all the different letters of the Braille alphabet. And each letter of the Braille alphabet is a different configuration of 6 potential dots. So that works really well with a Lego brick. Oh yeah, thank you so much. So there's packs of different Lego bricks that make up each of the different letters in the Braille alphabet. And then there's a base piece at the bottom so that people learning Braille can arrange the different cubes, they're not cubes, bricks in different configurations to spell out different words and sentences. Which is very cool. And then my favorite part of this kit has taken a tumble, but it is a muffin tin with 6 tennis balls in it, which depicts a Braille letter. So this is actually, I have learned from reading this kit, this is actually a common learning aid for people learning Braille, that depending on the arrangement of the tennis balls, they make different letters. And for most of us who can see, it's a lot easier to feel 6 tennis balls than 6 little dots on a piece of Lego. There we go. Sorry, it's a bit chaotic. Thank you so much. And then fourth point I wanted to highlight is the role that our libraries play as physical spaces that are publicly accessible to people. So in 4 of our communities, we have 30 branches system-wide, and 4 of our branches are official designated heating and cooling centers for their communities. So in those communities, we have official contracts or letters of agreement with our local government saying that, yes, if there's a heat dome, we'll stay open extra hours. This is how this will work. But even for our other 26 branches, we de facto play that role in a lot of ways. So if there's wildfire smoke, the library is a safe air-conditioned space. If it's really cold out, The library is a free heated space. And I would say in our smaller communities, we often see that we're one of the few free open spaces for people to come. And then in our larger, more urban communities, we see that, there are people struggling with homelessness or addictions who use the library a lot as a space to be. Ah, yes, this picture really illustrates the point. Um, and so then the fifth thing I wanted to talk about is funding, to end on an exciting note. So I think that your council generously did provide us with a letter of support for our advocacy work to ask for more provincial funding. So most of our funding is municipal, and I'm really, really grateful for that. So thank you so much for you as a council for supporting us. But we do get a bit of provincial funding, and a couple years ago, we got a one-time additional grant from the province that I, as CEO, have prioritized making sure that that money gets out to each of our branches and each of our communities. So I think there was a bit of casual conversation before the meeting started, talking about how the Osoyoos branch has got new flooring and we've ordered new shelving that hasn't all arrived yet. But so really trying to put that provincial money into like concretely benefiting each of our facilities and each of our communities. And I think that's a decent segue to pass things over to Joanne, and she'll talk about what's happening here in Osoyoos.
Thank you, Danielle. Thank you so much for having us today. And I just wanted to touch really briefly on some of the demographics that we are reaching out to within our community. So we're very diversified. We try to hit all of our groups, like our seniors, our children, of course. We've got so many events that we have going on, as well as our young adults, and then the adults as well. I just wanted to touch on a couple of our really cool things that we're doing this summer. What Danielle was talking about, our summer reading club, how we love partnering with our community and with the businesses here to enhance and to showcase them as well. So I have some really amazing ideas that my assistant community librarians have done. So one of the ones I want to tell you about, invite you maybe to come into the library and check out, is in the month of August. We have an event that's a choose your own adventure. And if you remember these old books that we used to have, that you read a story and then you get to the bottom of the page and then you go to a different page somewhere within the book. So they've taken this concept and excuse me, and reached out to different businesses on Main Street, in different areas. And so you'll start your adventure within our library. You'll read part of a story, and then it'll take you to a decision. You'll now head to a different business that'll take you to the next part of the story, and so on. And so until you complete this adventure. And it's based on our theme, The Color Your Summer. So you're going around and you're collecting crystals at each of these different businesses in your passport so that you accomplish the finding all the lost pieces of the rainbow from these crystals. And so it's us reaching out to our community, and we're showcasing these businesses, and then we're taking it one step further with electronic, and we are growing our Instagram account. And so you can take pictures now and post them within this site that will showcase Osoyoos, and we'll have a tag for the library that will now be out there on the internet, and then it'll be enhancing our amazing town, all these great small businesses. And then we, of course, are going to be supporting our businesses with the prizes from their businesses are going to be gift cards. So then we're now developing that and showcasing them. So that's just one of the things, but it's for all ages. It's for visitors who are coming in. It's for people who are here regularly, and then, of course, all of our townspeople as well. So that's one of the things. We also love going out and being part of the committees that are here. So we partner with Desert Sun Counseling Center a lot. So they have a seniors advocacy group that we participate in their meetings. So we know what's going on so that we can help with this group. We make sure that we have an amazing program that we have with them called Tech Tutoring, that we have one-on-one tutoring. A tutor comes into the library. It's a free service with Dakota Literacy, and they're the ones who fund the tutor who comes in and sits down with people with their electronics, because it's something that it's very challenging to different to the senior demographic. And so it's always full, our schedule for that. And we're just really happy to have that. But that's all I wanted to showcase for now, in case there's anything else that you'd like. Thanks, Danielle.
Thank you very much, Danielle and Joanne. That's pretty amazing, all the things that you're doing. I just had one question, then I'll see if anybody else has one. If the children's reading program, is there an age limit, lower and an upper on that one?
So it's geared at school age from grade or from kindergarten up to grade 7. But we do also have a program that's for toddlers. So we have these challenge trackers that they have that they come in and they will complete activities, and the activities are not always book based. Maybe it's take a walk in the park or go fly a kite. So there are different challenges that they have. And then we have a teen one as well, so that we have all the demographics covered for that reading.
Thank you very much. Sounds really interesting. Counselor King.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Two questions. One, do you apply for federal grants, Danielle?
We don't have any regular federal funding, so the quick answer is no.
Okay.
Yeah, if you have any leads on federal grants that you think would be applicable to us, we'd be happy to look into them.
Thank
But
you.
yeah, generally in BC, libraries are funded
I
municipally
know,
and a little bit
just wondering,
provincially.
grants a little different than provincial.
Yeah.
And then the other question, I think it's fantastic that you're reaching out to the community with that adventure program. Just so I understand it, a person picks up the package at the library, then say they go to a business and they get the jewel, then do they have to go back to the library, or do they kind of go to the next business?
Yeah, so the way the story works is you start at the library, you get a passport, and then we've talked with these businesses, and within the window, they'll have the rest of the story. And of course, it enhances, they can go in and visit the business, but this is accessible to anybody any time of the day. So if that business happens to be closed when you're having your adventure, then that's okay. And then at the end, if you'd like to collect a prize, then yes, you come back to the library. Yeah.
Terrific. Thank you. Go ahead, Counselor Bennett.
Thank you. Do you mind just talking a little bit about the fold-up libraries that are kind of coming up, like in Kelowna, which is a pretty neat concept in malls now?
Yeah, so Counselor Bennett is on the library board. So there's always a member of your council who sits on the ORL board. So Counselor Bennett is 1/24th of my boss. So much power. But yeah, in a couple years, starting next year, we'll be opening 2, we're calling them pocket branches in Kelowna, because of course Kelowna is growing a lot. So we're going to open 2 pocket branches that are as part of rec centers. So they'll have like a little footprint of space that we as the library own, that's sort of a storage and staff workspace. And then when the library is open, then the doors fold out and the library shelving gets wheeled out, so that from a public perspective, it looks like a full-sized small-ish library, but from an administrative perspective for us, it's more affordable and it's more compact. So it's I think a really good example of partnering with some of our local governments, that we worked closely with the planning department of City of Kelowna to come up with that scheme.
Thank you. I can remember as a kid in Vancouver that every Friday night the bookmobile came to an area close to where I lived. And that was a real treat to be able to go up there, get a book, and return it the following week. So I really thank you, both of you, for coming up with these really interesting ideas. As we all know, we pay taxes, and the library board is definitely on there. That's part of our taxes. So, I encourage everybody to use it and to make good use of it, because we're all paying for it, and it sounds like it's a great place to go and visit for kids and adults. So thank you very much for coming. We really appreciate it.
Thank you all so much.
Okay. Next on our list is Mr. Witcherly is coming up to talk to us about metal storage containers. Come on up to the microphone. Thank you. You've got to turn it on, the bottom right. There.
How's that?
Go ahead. Welcome. Thank you.
It's red. It must be on. Council, Mrs. Mayor, thank you very much for having me, staff. Appreciate the time. I want to talk about bylaw 1392, which refers to metal storage containers. I own a piece of property at 4002 Lobelia. I've had 2 metal storage bins there for quite a while. And I was about a year ago approached by a couple of bylaw officers telling me that I have to get rid of the bins. They do not fit into the bylaw. So I wasn't happy about it. I've used those bins for storing, securely storing my tools and other stuff. But I do understand that the way the bylaw is written, shouldn't have these bins on residential lots. But at that time, I got rid of one of the bins. I had 2 there. I got rid of one. It's kind of funny because at the time when they came to me, I said to them, "Why are you here?" They said they had a complaint. And I said, obviously from a neighbor, "Could you tell me who that was? I can go see the neighbor, see if I can cover the bin with a tarp." And they said, "No, will not tell me who the complaint come from." Fair enough, if that's what the rules are. So I ended up selling one of the bins, the one that had the least amount of property in it. I cleaned it out and I sold it. And what's kind of funny about it is that that bin got bought by another taxpayer, and it sits about 200 feet away from where it sat on my property. It sits today and is okay there. It's, people are not chasing him for that bin. It kind of puts a little poke in my side for that. I didn't really want to get rid of it. So I had one last remaining bin and I thought, had a lot of stuff, and I thought, I just don't want to get rid of it. So I did drag my feet about getting rid of it, and it still sits there today. So what I did is I started looking around. I looked at the bylaw and I started looking around town to see how many bins do we have in this town? And we have a lot. And we have on single family lots where they aren't to be there. The bylaw talks that they shouldn't be in the front yards. They're in the front yards. And I can guarantee you, bylaw people are driving by these bins constantly. So the bylaw reads that the zones that these bins can be in is agricultural, general industrial, and heavy industrial. And it says that you're only allowed 2 bins per parcel. If you go and look at these zonings, they're loaded with bins. So why are they not being held to 2 bins per parcel? Why are other single family lots being allowed to have them? Why are the commercial properties? I'll take you for a walk here, like 5 minutes from us, we got bins in their backyards, and how come they can all have it and I can't have mine? They did tell me that they only enforce on a complaint. I'm not here to complain about everybody else's bin today, because I believe that these bins are good for quite a few different reasons. I mean, nowadays, security is, a major thing. I've talked to the staff, and then they've been great to chat with about it. Sure, I could go and build a wood shed in my backyard, but if somebody wants to break into that wood shed, they can just put their foot against the door and they're in. They can't get into these bins. These bins are secure, they're fire rated. They, for now at times, it's a good thing to have. So I'm a little unclear why we have taken over the years, and I know this bylaw has been around, and I just recently got told that the bylaw was revisited last fall. So I'm assuming that was with this council, and you've stuck to it. It's still in act that these bins can't be used. I'm confused. What is it about these bins? Is it because they're metal, or we just simply have to have an aluminum garden shed? We have to have a wood garden shed? I think this should be revisited. I agree totally that these bins should not be in the front yard of a residential lot, which we have them here in several places. That seems to be okay there. From what I can see, I think about 99% of these bins in their locations, they don't bother our taxpayers, because if it's complaint based only, our bylaw people would be telling them to move them. they're not being told, as far as I know, to move them. So the complaint-based issue isn't working, like they're just allowed to have them. So I guess I had a neighbor that didn't like the looks of it. I can tell you why. I'm pretty sure I know who did it. They took down about a 16-foot high cedar hedge, and all of a sudden my bin was sitting on the other side of it, and they wanted it, they wanted it gone. So
Excuse me, Mr. Wycherley, you've had 5 minutes, which was what you're allowed. I'm just wondering, are you just
I
about
just
finished?
finished up, yeah,
All
I
right,
just-
please continue
sorry.
quickly. Thank you.
I didn't realize that when I'm having fun, time went by very quickly.
There's always a 5-minute.
Yeah, fair enough.
Thank
And
you.
I
I'm sure
was
you were
aware of
told
I
that.
just didn't know. So really what I'm here to do is ask the staff to look, or sorry, the council to look at this issue again and try and decide if it is the way it has to be, then I am willing to get rid of my other bin, but I'm also willing to bring in the complaints to allow bylaw to get out there and do their job. I just don't think it should be on a complaint base. If it is a law in our town, why don't we get them to enforce it instead of starting fights between neighbors and taxpayers?
And thank you very much for bringing this up. Definitely, it is complaint-based because we don't have, basically bylaw doesn't have time to go around and check everything that they might have a complaint on. But to be fair, it needs to be looked at. Either everybody who has one of these bins needs to be told to remove it, or we need to look at things again. But as it is right now, that is our policy and so we have to go by that. I will just check and see if anybody has any questions before you go. Thank
Sure,
you.
thank you.
Councillor Chong?
Thank you. Just 2 points. One, to clarify, we have been looking at this bylaw a lot lately. It is 96 pages, so the one portion with the metal containers is just a very small portion
Yes, I
of it.
understand.
I personally love sea containers because, as you said, like from a security point of view, they're essentially bulletproof. I think when this was added to bylaw 1395, like this was before our time. Do you remember what the rationale was?
I know that Councillor Poderica knows, or would he answer, or you, Mr. Wissling? Would you go ahead and tell what you know about this, and we can certainly ask the administration as well.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. I do know a lot of this happened. A lot of the changes across the province was 2011. Dan Botkin, who was a firefighter in Enderby, was killed at a structure fire, which there was a chemical reaction that took place in a sea container that caused the doors to blow open at a fire that they were tending, and the door struck and killed him. At that point, I know my time in the fire service at the time that conversation was, that's when we started seeing that legislation across the province goes. The climate for shipping containers started changing drastically. I know we know there's a lot of use for them within storage size, especially temporary storage or temporary use storage. But what was happening is their concern was, without knowing the ventilation, without knowing any of those other concerns, what was being stored in there, that's where their concern was for the use of the shipping containers. And that's when we started seeing some enforcement across the province and changes to legislation in terms of permitted use and occupancy and location of them. And that's, I think, where it originated from back in 2011, I think it was.
Thank you. Councillor King?
Couple questions. I don't really have the answer. 96 pages. My understanding, if you're developing on a site, it's okay to have a container there for 3 or 6 months. Is that right?
Yes, through your worship, on a temporary basis, or you're doing renovations, floods, that type of thing. Yes, you come in and get a permit and we don't issue it.
And I'd really like a motion that staff relook at this bylaw, at least that one section, to see if we can improve it or change it or agree with it. And I think we should look at it.
You don't have your microphone on?
Could the problem be that we're calling them shipping containers and that we're thinking they should go on, overseas freighters? Maybe we should rename these things just as storage containers and get over the shipping stuff.
I think it's a bit confusing, actually. But we need to We can certainly, as Councillor King suggested, we can certainly look at this issue again, but at the moment, we do need to follow the bylaw as is written, so.
Yeah, no, I
yeah.
agree. Yeah.
So, go ahead, Councillor Bennett.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. So the motion is that we ask staff to admin to have a look at this bylaw again in terms of the metal storage containers, shipping containers, whatever they happen to be called, and come back to council with a report. All right, all in favor? Thank you very much. Thank you.
Could I say one last thing?
Yes.
I did get a ticket about a month ago by the bylaw. And I took it into staff and said I would like to dispute it because I'd like to come here and talk to you guys about it. And then I went away for a week and I got home and I got another ticket. And the staff wants me to dispute that. And I'm going, are they going to keep sending me tickets until the bin's gone? And like I said, I'll get rid of the bin. It won't be overnight, but I'll get rid of it. But maybe the tickets could stop coming. Like,
Yeah.
I understand the severity of it.
Thank you. We understand that that will be part of what we will be looking at, I think. But at the moment, the ticket stands, I would think,
I understand.
because it's
I
been
just don't
given.
want
But
one next week and one the week after.
okay. Thank you very much for coming and presenting to us. Thank you.
And thank you all for your time.
Running away right
Okay.
now. Show up today, let me know.
All right. Our next presentation is from the Osoyoos Airport Development Society. And we have a presentation from Rob Roche and Kevin Mayer. Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, just for the record, Rob Roche, I'm the new chair of the organization. Usually you'd see Glenn Harris and his lovely baritone voice up here, soothing you. He is now an ex officio officer of our society, still serves and volunteers like the rest of us. But with me today is Kevin Mayer. Coincidentally, another Air Canada pilot I've flown with. He's also a licensed aircraft maintenance engineer, and he'll increasingly be the face of the organization. You're going to see more of him, so he's able to speak to these issues as well. I think the first item on the agenda is the airport master plan. Just as a refresher, this was funded through the REDIP, Rural Economic Development Incentive Program, if that sounds right. Sounds right. We'll go with that. Steve Underwood was here 3 months ago, had a pretty exhaustive presentation on that 600+ page document. The real highlights of it, it's a 7-phased development of the airport, master plan for the airport. We're not married to it, but it does give us a direction to go to, and we receive inquiries from the public or people who want to put a hangar up or anything really related to the airport. It's a guide. One of the guiding principles of that document was that it didn't mortgage the future of the airport. We're not married to any specific direction. No action we would take today would prevent something from happening in, say, 10, 20, 30 years from now. And frankly, it's probably going to take that long to see the plan realized if we throw our weight behind it. Yeah, it would be again, that plan would be almost exclusively done through grant funding in terms of our commitment to it, being the town and any volunteers such as the Osoyoos Airport Development Society. The real meat and potatoes, like the hangar structures going up, would be from people who are getting leasehold agreements. So I know this went out for public comment, and I just really, for this topic, just wanted to make us available to you folks if you had questions that came up through that process or just about the agreement itself. And it was a big read. I'll be honest with you, I've not got all the way through it because there's a lot of appendices. But yeah, wanted to make myself available. So any questions related to that?
Yeah, thank you very much. We do have, as you can see, copies of all of that and interesting questions that were asked of the public, and the answers and so on are here as well. So I will ask Councillor King and then Councillor Bennett. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just one question. You're a nonprofit. Who's on your board as we speak today?
Kevin Mayer, Dana Thomas, I think you've all met her. She's our treasurer. She's back on the board. Yeah, she had some personal issues to attend to for a year or two. Danny Yosh, he's a pilot as well. He's our secretary. We got Steiner Johnson. I think he's appeared here a few times. A developer lives up the hill. I'm going to be so bad at if I miss anybody. Chip Sabian from the WCRA. Gary Dell, same organization. Blair Ogilvy, same organization. We've got some good representation from the WCRA and JF Lonier. I think that's it.
Out of memory, that's hard.
Yeah.
Okay,
Tough question, Joe.
and that was sent to Victoria, those names recently?
It has been, yeah.
So you're in good standing as?
No, thanks for bringing that up. That's tongue in cheek. Yeah, we, through this process, meeting with the Airport Steering Committee, the Airport Committee, which has been meeting for the next item of the agenda, the Airport Management Agreement, we're hoping to bring the fruit of those meetings to our membership at our AGM. And it just dragged and dragged and dragged because it looked like it was just around the corner. Calendar year turned over. The Society Act has changed slightly. You have to have your AGM within the calendar year now. So the soonest we could be, we're still a registered society, have been since 2013, but to be current with our AGM filings, it's going to be September.
Yeah, I just find that a little difficult to come up with agreement when you're not in good standing. That's just my point of view.
Yeah, I think you're speaking about the next item on the agenda, which would be the management agreement. And I think by the time that, I'm assuming it would go to public comment as well, maybe. But we're not far off September, which is when we would be compliant. It could be conditional upon that. I'm probably getting ahead of the conversation here, but I think that's your concern as well. Like, how would you have an agreement with a society that's not current with the BC Society Act? Sure.
Just one other question. Does your society have a code of conduct?
It does.
It does? Okay. And all your members are aware of it?
They're all aware of it. They've all signed it. We actually had a fairly robust conversation about it recently.
I'm
so,
sure.
Yeah.
Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Rob, just a comment. When I'm reading in the paper and I see the media trying to say Soyuz is going after Oliver Airport business and we're competing with them,
Yeah.
I look at this as there's a lot of opportunity for both airports.
Mhm.
We had a company come last year and present something to the council that they needed to, if they were going to proceed, they would have to use both airports.
Mhm.
Because one would be Penticton Airport or Soyuz Airport would be perfect because you don't have all the traffic, you don't have the helicopter training.
Mhm.
For their type of thing, that they would just have an office set up there and then they would continue on. But then they would also need fuel and they need a hangar. So it would be an ideal thing. They go back at night, go there, work on the planes, get them ready for the next day, have the thing happening at the Soyuz Airport.
Mhm.
So and we've had other people approach us about going on the airport property for different businesses. So I'm thinking here, this is not us against Oliver.
No, not at all. No, not
Yeah.
at all. It's a very actually, Kevin might want to speak to this, but airports that are in close proximity to each other traditionally have a very symbiotic relationship. I think about my own flight training 35, 40 years ago down the Lower Mainland. For training specifically, or just your weekend aviator that wants to go have we call a $100 hamburger because of the cost of avgas to fly 50 miles to have your next meal. You do need airports in proximity to each other. They tend to feed off of each other. The community, it's that rising tide floats all boats thing. If you look south of the border, if you were to Google airports in North America, it looks like a shotgun blast south of the border. They're everywhere and they're not in competition with each other. They all help each other out. In Canada, we just have a different approach to it, despite aviation playing a massive part in the growth and development of Canada as a country. We're sort of like dotted along the border as our entire population is, but much more spread out, Yeah, it's not an us versus them thing at all.
Okay, I had a point. I'm a little bit concerned about the cost of maintaining an airport in Osoyoos and an airport in Oliver. I do know that way back before the Penticton Airport, regional airport was put in, Oliver was the other option. So both areas were considered very appropriate for a regional airport. Obviously, Penticton was decided on. So I think that the Oliver Airport has enough property. It has enough ability to have hangars and all of the businesses that are needed there. And my concern is, I guess, that if we have an airport in Osoyoos and we're putting, and obviously it's going to cost money, and we know that the report that's here shows that there may not be a cost to Osoyoos taxpayers, but I'm very skeptical about that because everything costs. And we have Oliver 15 minutes away. When I lived in Vancouver, I lived in the main part of Vancouver. It took me 30 minutes to get to the Vancouver International Airport. So it doesn't even bother me now to go to Penticton. I fly out of Penticton a lot, and 45 minutes from my house to Penticton Airport. So that concerns me, and the fact that I know that Oliver's having to pave their runway fairly soon, that's a huge cost. And that would be the town's cost if we had to pave ours as well. All of these things put together just make me a little skeptical. And actually, Paul Dumoret, who used to be who was the sort of the organizer and the CEO of the Oliver Airport, came and spoke to us a few years back. And he was quite concerned about having another airport down here and putting a lot of money into it, and felt that perhaps, and he lived in Osoyoos, but he worked out of Oliver, so he was in both areas. That was a concern of his. I know, unfortunately, he's died since he came here, so we can't ask him for that again. That does concern me a little bit. As you know, our biggest concern in Osoyoos is water. And there are some people who think we should spend money on nothing else except water. I mean, obviously we can't do that. We've got to look at all kinds of things. But that part sort of niggles at the back of my mind. And I'm wondering if Mr. Mayor could answer a question, because I understand that he is supportive of both airports and lives in Oliver and has a hangar in Oliver. Am I correct? Is it possible to ask you what your perception is and why you think one over the other, or you think that money should be spent on both? Could I ask Mr. Mayor that?
But can I speak to a couple of points you made before I hand it?
Yeah.
With your permission? First of all, I'll speak to the funding issue. Very valid point. We have much better things in this town to spend money on than the airport. And I understand your reticence and skepticism, but in all sincerity, first of all, the ongoing cost of, say, resurfacing and all that was built into it, and we were quite sincere. This is all being chased down through grant funding and leaseholds. And just to characterize the airport for what it could be when I say near term, 10, 20 years, near term. We're not looking at this as to be like a transportation link like Penticton is, in which Oliver frankly never will be. Penticton was chosen, it's one of the few federal airports left in Canada because of its geography. It's wide open on both ends, lake on the north and south. It was a federal airport, very easy to develop as an actual transportation link. The runway was long enough for going way back. Some of you might be old enough to remember that Pacific Western Airlines used to fly 737s in there twice a day. I mean, it really was a booming little hub. Oliver could never be that. It's sort of landlocked by infrastructure off both ends. Osoyoos, coincidentally, has a very similar valley shape to Penticton. It could once get to that place, but that's actually not what we're talking about. What we do want to see is airport-related businesses locating here that would generate tax, employ people, and just contribute to the community. We're not looking at it as a transportation piece, as like a scheduled service transportation piece. So it tends to be what people think of with airports, is that's when they go to an airport, they're getting on an airplane to travel somewhere. That's not really what we're looking at least not in the near term. Like I said earlier, we don't want to mortgage the future of Osoyoos. If our kids decide they want that kind of airport here, there actually is land to the north that could be perhaps rezoned. It's one of the few things that could be sprung out of the ALR is for airport related purposes, but none of us will be around when that happens. I'm going to let, on the subject of Paul, do not in any way want to disparage his comments or his character, but I would say that as the Oliver Airport manager, he might have had an agenda to say, yeah, do you really want an airport in Soyuz? This business should be in Oliver. But to my earlier point, it's not a zero-sum game. They do feed each other, and I'll let Kevin speak to that.
Thanks, Rob.
Oh, thank you. You actually said a lot of things that I wanted to say much more eloquently than I could. Little background. Yeah, I'm a pilot. Yeah, I'm an aviation mechanic. I moved to Oliver. I volunteered on the board. I'm very ignorant of past history and politics and who's who, but my contribution to ODES is more technical because one of the things I did when I was on Vancouver Island was actually manage and run a small airport. So I'm familiar with the regulatory environment, what Transport Canada require, what works in airport leases, what doesn't, just stuff like that. So I'll just quickly touch on your points. I know enough about Osoyoos to know that, yes, you don't want to spend a lot of money on an airport right now. I get that. Done carefully, airports are actually self-funding. The Oliver Airport, yes, they have to repave a runway. 80% of it will be done with a grant, but the airport in Oliver actually, I believe, I better not say for sure, I believe is probably a net positive cash flow to the town because yes, they spend money, they plow the snow, they do this, they do that, they fix lights, but you know, there's significant taxes coming from every single hangar. That's the first thing. Like I haven't seen the books, but I know what each hangar pays in tax, and I would be very surprised if the airport was a drain on the city's finances. It's not a huge money maker, but as Rob said, the key to these airports, okay, they enhance the quality of life of people with airplanes, and you have flying clubs, and it's another nice reason to move here, but you know, that's probably not your concern. The value in the airport for Osoyoos is, as Rob touched on, one, the businesses it can attract. There's 3 or 4 aircraft helicopter maintenance businesses in Oliver, and they employ people, and they're not jobs, they're well-paying jobs. An aircraft mechanic doesn't make $20 an hour, and they buy a house and they buy a car, and they, you know, it's year-round stable employment. Especially the helicopter companies, they tend to get work from all over the world. Transwest is rebuilding a bunch of helicopters right now that are from New Zealand. So flying schools, stuff like that. So that's one sort of down the road. That's why you want commercial businesses at your airport. It's actually a little bit the property taxes. It's more the year-round stable, decent employment that they can bring. The other thing that's worthwhile developing the airport is emergency services. You probably don't do a lot of aerevacing out of Osoyoos, but believe it or not, even the helicopters need airports. There are times and weather conditions where the aerovac helicopters cannot land at a hospital. At the airport I ran, we had a hospital with a heliport. They couldn't land there in fog. Well, you don't get fog here, but here's another one. Huge MVA motor vehicle accident. They now have 3 helicopters. They can only land 1 at the hospital, so they use the airport. Firefighting, stuff like that. So, you know, search and rescue type stuff. That's another, you know, I'll put it this way, ask the city councilors at Hope, Lillooet, and Merritt about how valuable their airports are. Their airport saved their skin when the Trans-Canada Highway, you know, flooded out. What was the other thing I was going to say? As far as developing the airport cost-wise, I think it can be staged slightly more economically and slightly more skillfully than perhaps was envisioned in the report, which, as Rob said, is a great report and master plan, but we're not married to it. As I said to Rod at one meeting, one of the things to do is if you could get a sort of initial anchor tenant, you could offset the leases. You can say, hey, you get $1 a year lease for so many years, but you got to pound in the infrastructure, the sewer, the water, whatever. And a larger company would be willing to do that. And now you've got the stuff there at no upfront cost. And yeah, you're forfeiting lease payments every year, but right now you're getting none of them anyway, right? I don't know. Is any of this helpful? Any other questions?
I just want to thank you for, for giving your point of view because I think there's a lot of information here that we have to deal with. There's a lot of commitment from the town and of course, and from Odes, and we absolutely appreciate what Odes has done over the years. And so I think there's a couple of people that still have questions. Are you okay with that?
Oh, absolutely. I just wanted to say one other thing about Oliver. They're not in competition. Oliver has a lot of land, but they have some big plans for it. And I suspect that in our lifetime and a lot sooner, Oliver might actually run out of airport land. They're trying to decide what to do with their airport development long term. And they have some ideas floating around that are going to gobble up a lot of that land, all the land. Yeah. So it's not an inexhaustible resource.
Thanks. And we do meet with Oliver quite often, and that's one of the things that is on our agenda for our next meeting. And we have talked about it before. But I do think there is a cost to Oliver, and they have sort of mentioned that. And I'm not going to go into the details because I don't
be
know,
honest.
but yeah.
I haven't seen
Yeah.
books. I don't know.
Okay.
But I'm guessing.
I'm going to let Councillor Poderica and then, it's just Councillor King. Go ahead, Councillor King.
I don't know, Kevin or Rob can answer it. On your committee, have you done any thoughts of how you're going to raise money in the future, except saying grant? Have you identified a grant? Possibly?
I'll throw that to Rob. He's the grant guy. I'm too new to really understand the history of the grant.
There's no grant in the pipeline right now. Like nothing has been identified that we've applied to that we're waiting. No, if that's your question, no.
And the other thing, it's easy to say commercial development, but that piece of property is actually a lot smaller than you think. And correct me if I'm wrong, but there's only a space for about 2 commercial buildings, excluding hangars.
2 big ones.
Yeah, it depend what we mean by commercial buildings. Actually, see Steve's on the call here. He
Yeah,
could
well,
probably speak to that. As I'm saying, we're not married to the work that Steve did so diligently for us.
I know, but that's what we're looking to pass.
Yeah. So in the 7 phases, I believe phase 1 is a 3-bay hangar, then phase 2 is fuel, then it's the 2-bay, 3-bay, 3-bay, 3-bay. So when you're up there looking at empty land, it doesn't look like much at all, but Steve and his team have done a fantastic job identifying sites where we could, I'm going to say shoehorn, pretty significant structures up there that could serve as a commercial business. For example, Kevin could be turning wrenches on small aircraft.
Well, that's the plan.
That's the plan.
Actually, I'll throw this one at Steve. One thing that really impressed me about that 600-page document is I've run a small airport, and when I saw the way he envisioned using the land, I was stunned. Like, no one's going to top that.
We've
I
heard
guess-
from Steve before, so we've talked to him. Go ahead,
I guess
Councillor
it's really
King.
understanding when you say a hangar, it could be a commercial building kind of paired up. And I think that needs to be cleared.
I'm going to hopefully I'm going to make a point that I really strongly feel very strongly about. And this is a down the road getting ahead of ourselves, but be very, very, very careful what businesses you put on an airport, because there have been airports that allow non-aviation related businesses. And the way I put it to people is, if you just want an industrial park, why do you have a really expensive runway beside it? The airport is for airport businesses. You can put, another type of building. So Boundary Bay did this. Boundary Bay, when they started writing their initial leases, they said, oh yeah, sure, there's a truck accessory shop, a golf net place, and whatever. There's a whole row of hangars right on airside, access to taxiways. You can get an airplane to them. And they have nothing to do with aviation. And now they regret it, and they tried to unwind the leases and they couldn't. So one thing I can't stress enough is if you want to be in the airport business, be in the airport business. Don't just rent out the land to whoever shows up.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we've spent a fair amount of time on this and that the staff reports will be coming up next. So really appreciate both of you coming and talking about this. Okay?
Did you want us to stick around? I think there's another agenda item that's a little
There-
bit separate to this or ancillary.
You are totally welcome to sit there. You and listen to this. You will not be able to speak on the staff reports. That
sorry, it
will
was
be staff and council.
Sorry,
Okay?
Mayor, it was the previous item on the agenda. There's the airport management agreement, which was, we've sort of been talking exclusively about the airport master plan.
We have two staff reports coming up, the airport master plan and financial analysis, and the second one is the airport management.
Perfect. Okay, I
Okay.
misread that then.
Thank you.
Before I go, if I can make one more point. If it'll assuage your, especially your concerns, Mayor. In the since COVID, the town has thrown in $10,000 directly to the development of the airport, not the maintenance of it, but the development of it. Those dollars have been leveraged to almost $700,000 by ODES, and that's sort of what we envision going forward. So it's a fantastic multiplier on the investment. Yeah, and that's the vision. So
Great.
thanks very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Okay, we will now move on to, and this has taken a little longer than we thought, but never mind, all good discussions. I'm going to ask Mr. Risling to present on the airport master plan and financial analysis. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, airport management plan and financial analysis survey, as well as the management agreement. These have been topics that have been around for a long, long time. We also have Mr. Underwood visiting us in case there's additional questions on the master plan and the financial analysis. But today, basically, the topic is to look at the survey results. As council is aware, it went to committee of the whole a couple of months ago. We went out for public consultation, and this is where we're at today. So some of this has been talked about already, but I'm just going to recap some things that have been talked about before, and also from our delegation that just presented on what ODES has been doing over the past few years. So first of all, I think one of the things that needs to be stated, because it keeps coming up within the community and on some of our lands, and that's to take lands like the airport or the golf course, these types of things, and redevelop them. And what some of the public doesn't understand is that, yes, we do own the properties. However, there is a reverter clause on them. What that basically means is that the property right now is in the town's name, and it can be used for public things like airports, the racetracks, the golf courses. But thinking of converting that to other use like residential or commercial industrial, the province would not allow that. Now there's a whole process maybe to get those lands converted, but what a lot of people believe is there's a jackpot of money there. We could develop it. And that's not how it would work if the province would even agree to something like that. The province would actually want their profit in that whole property. So I just wanted to reiterate that, because that keeps coming up, that we have all this land that's potential for development, and there's a lot of money that's sitting there, and that's not the case. So the other thing I wanted to bring up is the Airport Development Society, and just they're very active volunteers and have done a lot of work on the airport the last several years. And just want to highlight a few of the bigger things over the last 5 years or so. There's their runway extension. They built the fence around the perimeter of the airport. They've added some tie downs, and they commissioned the thesis that Mr. Underwood's team did, the airport master plan and financial analysis survey that's in excess of 600 pages. So as I indicated, in May 15th, 2025, we came to committee of the whole, and Mr. Underwood and his team reviewed the master plan and financial analysis. Council then asked for public input, so a survey was put online and it was open for approximately a month. And at the end, we received 84 responses to the survey questions. And I'm going to quickly go through the survey questions now. The first was, do you live in Asuyas? And so there were 84 responses, and 81% said yes, 19% said no. Do you currently use the airport? And basically 34% said yes, 63% said no. If you answered yes to question 2, please answer the following. Are you an aviator? And in essence, about 40% of those 38 responses said yes, and 61%, or about 18 people, said no. And do you support the airport master plan? Of 81 responses, 44% said yes, 54 no. If you answered no to question 4, which phases of the master plan do you oppose? And there were 45 responses to this piece of it. It's a multi-phase type of a question. And so of those 45, about 13% of them were in agreement with phase 1. As you started going down into the additional phases, of which I think there's 7 or 8, there was only about 5% support. And overall, do you support any part of the master plan? And there was 54 responses here, and the actual responses are included in the report. I don't think it's really a surprise in the comments. There's people that are in favor of it and others that are not. I think one of the key themes that I looked at in the written comments is a lot of people were concerned with potential costs associated with the airport development, and because those funds should be going to something like water or other infrastructure needs. And I think that is not what the report said. The report is basically a self-funding development. So certainly things can go wrong, but if everything were to go as per the plan, there wouldn't be a further drain on the property taxpayer. So I just wanted to highlight that. Again, the margins are very, very, very thin, but again, if everything went perfect, the report does indicate that the report would pretty much take care of itself, again, with risk. I'm just going to make some general overall comments. Some of these council has heard before, and again, I just want to regurgitate. Again, there is risk within this plan, but the intent of it is not to impact taxpayers. But again, the margin is very slim. And overall, went through all phases. There is a slight benefit to the town from a financial perspective. I do want to bring up that there is no financial capacity for the town to fund any capital investments at the airport. I think everybody is aware of that. We're in a situation with the water plant, the latest estimates require at least $40 million in grants. And even if we receive $40 million, we will be at our debt limit. So that's just that's the reality. There really is no funding to back any development at the airport. ODES is an active group, and they have committed to the airport. And for those that are in favor of airport development, with the existing staffing resources, that plan would never come to fruition. There simply is not the capacity internally to spend any time on the airport as far as looking at development. We're doing additional improvements, additional maintenance, that type of thing. We spend very limited time on that airport. That is one of the benefits of volunteers. They are passionate about something, and they usually can do a lot better job sometimes than the town, for example, in this situation. Over the past several years, there's been a lot of talk about the airport, developing it, different businesses, hangars, etc. And I've looked at some of the history, and again, it just keeps regurgitating. Every year, every 2 years, we seem to look at different options for this airport. I think this is one of the best reports that was done, or most wholesome reports done, as to what the potential is of that airport and the airport lands. So I think there's, at some point, approving this plan, at least then there would be a plan. You know, rather than spinning our wheels every couple of years on when a potential development does come in. So that is one of the positives with actually approving the plan. As mentioned, even by the presenters, once if the plan's approved and development begins, I mean, the plan can be there, but once the development starts occurring, depending on what it is, pretty much the airport is locked in. Because these leases, if people are going to be building hangars, they're going to want to be there for 30, 40, 50 years. So once that first development occurs, we're in it for the long hauls from an airport perspective. One of the things that's talked about, and I know council is aware of this and meetings with ministers, etc., grants awarded to the airport may negatively impact other town infrastructure projects. Depending on the grant, sometimes there's federal that don't really kind of count against, I guess, our ledger, but deep down, the government does look to see how many grants are given to different communities. And so in the grand scheme of things, if there's a lot of grants awarded to the airport, it will likely impact the grants that town is looking for on other infrastructure. Just to be clear, the property taxes that may generate from development on that site would not come to the town, but would funnel back to the airport to enable it to be self-sufficient. I think it's important that no matter where council goes, the airport will not be self-funded from a purely financial perspective. We're always going to have to repair the fence or repair the pavement, no matter what the development is there. I don't have all the details on the Oliver Airport, but definitely what we have heard from them that they do have to fund with property tax dollars. So the chance of this airport, regardless of this plan is approved or not, will require taxpayer dollars. And I just want to make that clear, just for the public's perspective, because this plan is approved and then there's a budget request that is required at the airport. It's potential that budget request would occur with or without this development. So at the end of the day, now it's time for council to discuss. You can either approve the financial master plan and financial analysis. Well, the second one is supposed to be approve it with changes, and the third is not to approve it. So now I'll open it up to questions, and hopefully myself, and likely Mr. Underwood, will respond.
Thank you. I think we have a few. Councillor King and then Councillor
Thank you,
Chow.
Madam Mayor. I guess, wouldn't it come down to how we sign the agreement? Because we have agreements with some other nonprofits. And aren't the nonprofits sort of responsible, say, for fencing or maintenance if a building is put up? It would have no impact on the taxpayers?
So through your worship, I think there's two different pieces here. So this overall strategy is a longer term, bigger vision. The management agreement, which is the next item on the topic, is going to be, I guess, more of the detailed pieces on where is council going to draw the line on how much the town finances will subsidize the airports. And so are there going to be pieces that are likely going to come out in the management agreement that if that agreement is signed, that ODES will like, lighting or something like that? I think that's a time when council debates whether, well, maybe ODES should try harder to do more revenue generator or not. So I think some of those details as far as on how the management is operated or managed into the future is definitely a dialogue that needs to occur. Again, back into that management agreement, ODES is to put budgets together and are to come to council for approval. So I think that's over time, that'd be good discussion between council and ODES.
I guess that's, to me, not quite clear. I support the airport master plan. It's just the financial analysis that goes with it in 600 pages shows quite a burden to us long term.
Maybe I'll take a shot at this and maybe Mr. Underwood can add on. So with the way the plan, if everything moved perfectly, and in essence, it actually shows that the town is financially revenue neutral, slightly above. I think there was a $10,000 net difference, which is, I'll, to be honest, I mean, in a multi-million-dollar project, that is pretty slim. But it is designed so that the development that occurs is self-sufficient, self-funding. That's how the model is there, but it's not taking care of all the stuff that's kind of there to begin with. And maybe Mr. Underwood, I don't know if you want to add to that or correct something that is
You
setting.
touched on in your summary, the other thing to highlight is that the tax revenue from the leases was also, accounted as funding. So I think every year, if you did look at whether or not you were making money, it always looked like you were losing money because the tax revenue is never just allocated. You can't say the tax revenue from this street goes to this airport, right? So the tax revenue would be going into general revenue, but it would be offsetting the losses that would be occurring in the air, or the cost, I guess, that the airport would be having.
I guess if I could just add a comment to that, with other nonprofits, though, once a year, we usually forego all the taxes on all the properties. So I don't know where this airport would stand being taxed, and they could ask for forgiveness on the tax.
The hangars would not. Those would be leases from private people that would build the hangars, and then once there's an improvement on those properties, those would incur property tax. And I wouldn't see the incentive for council to waive those. Obviously, council could if there was a nonprofit doing something there, but those hangars would be for someone, and they should pay tax.
Councillor Chung.
Thank you. A few points. So I guess this is more of a question for Council Poderica. What is the demographic of the current users of the airport? So those who do fly their planes in and out. I think reading through all the comments, there seems to be a misconception that we're flying G5s and G6s and ballers are just using this airport and the hyper rich are the only users. My understanding is hobbyists and enthusiasts are not those who are just at that 1% tax bracket.
Go ahead. I'll try and cover this. Thank you, Richard. First off, one of the things that we struggle with, obviously, is with no active management of the airport is we don't know who our users are. But we do know that, zero. There is no record. TransCan doesn't keep records of, a Cessna landed Oceus. They don't know that information. They can't provide that information. We can't even tell how many planes actually actively land or take off. Full stop. One of the things to, we look at what is landing. It is usually small Cessna based, it's hobby aviators. It's receives a little bit of commercial activity in terms of helicopters landing, either picking up or dropping off. A little bit probably, I would say private charter per se, but people who are bringing up friends or guests for the weekend. We do know now with the changes federally, there is a very active stop now for the RCMP's national assets, given its close proximity to the border, as well as the fact that federal RCMP have an office based in Oceus that services the jurisdiction that helicopter serves. Its next nearest base is where it is based out of is Langley, so this is a stopping point for that on a regular basis since March of this year, as well as I know Kevin touched bases the emergency air traffic that we see. More so, we've seen it used for fire base for retardant filler takeoff for them to load supplies. We've had some significant fires in the area in the last couple of years. Oceus lies in jurisdiction, unlike further up the valley, where it is an auto launch territory for BC Ambulance. So, unlike Penticton or anywhere on the North Highway 97 corridor, if a significant motor vehicle accident or traumatic accident occurs, this is an area in which auto launch takes place, which means that a helicopter, if it hits the criteria, a helicopter is either sent to scene or sent to the nearest available safe landing space to continue care. So we have seen that airport used for that, as well as, they can't land at the site itself, they will travel there. That does not exist to communities north of Oliver right now, for obvious reasons. Anything on Highway 87, it is ground ambulance only. So where we see that right now. We do know that usage, given the improvements in the last couple of years, that there has been a bit more use in terms of weekend stays, those types of things. We do know that there are some, aviators in the South Okanagan that have relocated or will move their places back and forth. We also know that although it isn't active right now, but given our close proximity to the border, I think it's important to note that Dorothy Walker, I believe, Airport in Oroville is actually one of Washington State's busiest commuter airports. Busiest airports actually for their customs clearance facility. I think that'd be a service that'd be great given its close proximity to the border. But Dorothy Walker actually is the preferred landing spot for those traveling in or out of the United States from, let's say, Alaska, based on its location, as well as I've been told the friendlier personality than those down on the Pacific Northwest towards near the Blaine side. But there's an opportunity, I think, there that some of that traffic on the flip side, on the Canadian clearance side, that there is some traffic potential there. But in terms of what, we can't tell, what is that? It's not, we're not seeing high-end commercial or private jets landing at that facility. It's fixed wing aircraft that are landing there for pleasure use for the most part.
Did you have something else?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And then also going through the comments, there seems to be a lot of a theme regarding WCRA and drag racing. I just wanted to make a clarification that there are 3 directors who are part of the WCRA who are also on ODES. So there is this, this narrative that, they're butting heads is simply just incorrect, right? There is a lot of collaboration, and I feel like it's not one or the other. I think there's a symbiotic relationship where both parties can benefit. And then also to comment on the good standing piece of it. To my knowledge, of course, it's a short time period, but ODE seems to be the only society and nonprofit that has actually self-funded and generated a 600-page plus asset management financial analysis plan in the CS. I have never seen any other society that has developed a document of this caliber. So to me, that speaks volumes as to the organization, as to the intent and the expertise that ODES provides. We also have to remember that they're also all volunteers, and if I recall correctly, there is no remuneration. With that said, steps are actively being taken to regain that good standing. But taking that as a low-hanging piece of fruit, as a strike against, I think is a disservice to every page of that 600-page document. So for a point of clarity, this analysis, this plan, it is a direction. We are not beholden to it. It is, in my opinion, I think it's just a way to generate private investment, and that's also what is going to be driving the capital project funding. It's private investment, right?
Dear Your Worship, I have to agree. It's a plan. It's a strategy, and so approving a document like this shows that this is generally where council wants to go. When you start getting into details, that can change, but conceptually, this shows that council is in favor of development to start occurring at the airport. With the next part, which is the management agreement, it's designed in a way that council still ultimately makes the decisions on what development occurs and how. So this document provides, again, a general direction, and if it's followed to the T and everything works out, it's kind of a revenue neutral type thing. As in going over then to the agreement, if ODE is looking at things, they'll come to council and say, yeah, we have interest in 2 hangars, 4,000 square feet, 40-year lease, or whatever it is. Council will still ultimately have that authority to say, yeah, we're pulling the trigger and we're going to start marching down this way. So I think it's a plan that can be tweaked along the way if we see the economy change. The plan can can be adjusted. So I hope that that answers. This is not a in cement type thing. It's indication of a direction that council's in favor of, but there's lots of decision making that's on I guess more of a ground level to make this come to fruition.
Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. After we with Councilor Chung, I was kind of concerned about the whole thing with the WRC, with directors being on both boards. When I seen the survey results, a lot of it seemed to be members of a certain organization that use the airport that filled in a lot of that, and it was kind of confusing of how they answered it. They're for it, but they're against it, and I wonder how that will work. But if we're going to have 3 or 4 members on both of the 2 boards, I'm sure they've got a plan to how to work that out. And if that's the case, then that would be in the management part. And I'd like to move option number 1. I think we should move on, and it's a 1-year plan. It gives us 1 year, gives you gentlemen 1 year to try to go from there.
That's in the next part, not in this part. This is the management, this is the master plan we're talking about, not the management plan. So it is
Yeah.
confusing. There's 2 different ones,
Yeah.
but we need to wait for that. That report is coming up next.
I'm moving this.
You
Master
want to move the
Yeah,
master
that's
plan.
fine.
Okay, I just had one concern and I've been writing things down because I'm concerned about, and I'm glad that you said, Mr. Risling, that if we okayed the plan, we then have to go through each step and okay it. My concern is if we say we okay the plan, to me, that means we okay all stages of the plan. And that I find is a little concerning. This is ODES is a group of volunteers who are enthusiastic today, and some of them have been for quite a while. My concern is, what is the town's liability if ODES decides that they are no longer a group? And unfortunately, there have been many nonprofit groups in town that this has happened the same way. And before we jump into this, I just want to know, what are the ramifications if something like that happens and they say, we don't have the ability to continue on this road? It reverts to the town, and that means a huge town liability. Is that correct?
So, Your Worship, I think I'm going to answer in a couple pieces. So the strategy itself is, yes, giving a nod that council's in favor of moving the airport from what it is today into something bigger. So that's what this plan says. I can say 100% certain, I almost never use the term like 100%, that this plan will not occur exactly as written. Like, it's pretty much probably impossible. It's a plan, it's a forecast. There's even though I like Mr. Underwood, I think he's got a lot of skills, I don't think he's that good to forecast 10 years into the future. So it's a plan based on, a ton of parameters that you have to come up with. But again, it gives an idea. So I think with certainty, as this rolls out, there will be changes. The economy will change. There'll be different businesses that maybe see this as an opportunity or not as an opportunity. So this is simply, I guess, saying that, yeah, we're going to change the look of this airport. We support it no longer staying the way it is as a strip of the fence. We are open to looking at potential development on that site, and things can change. We could have somebody come in that says, gee, I want 8,000 square feet, I want to do X, and you know what, maybe the first 2 phases are kind of changed and it's kind of accomplishing what was in the original 2 smaller phases into one. And so it's, I don't know if that helped. It's kind of an indication. Now, your second piece is what occurs down the road if ODES no longer, or nonprofit no longer, wants to take on this piece. So I think it really depends on what it is. Absolutely, As an airport gets bigger or development gets bigger, there is more management. You have more leases to deal with. You have more tenant concerns to deal with. I mean, the design here is basically that it's leasing out the land, and the hangar or the building is actually owned by the individual themselves, but there's still going to be pieces where, you know, there's additional gravel here. There's more traffic on the airport, so there'll be more concerns with, say, maintaining or street sweeping or that type of thing. So absolutely, as more development occurs, there's more administration. So if ODES would pull out or nonprofit would pull out, that would lie back on the town. And yes, we would have to hire staff to do it. I believe, and Mr. Underwood could correct me if I'm wrong, like there is some funding in this overall plan to assist in some of the management, some revenues that could be given to help subsidize salaries to it. Maybe not to what full market is, but there is some. So ultimately, if something falls apart down the road, 10, 20, 30 years, depending how far it is in the plan, there will be an onus on the town to take it because that's where it's going to fall back, and there could be a potential impact. I don't know, Mr. Underwood, if you're going to correct anything that I said.
No, you're correct. Like there is an allowance for management. Obviously, it's nominal in that it's, you know, a paid person that works for the, you know, the volunteer committee. But yeah, your point was also very good in that like phase one shows that there's going to be hangars and they're going to be serviced. What that ultimately looks like might be dictated by the market more than or by the first tenant or the first group of tenants. And so it will always be changed as it gets implemented. But I think something that's important for council at any time that they do, that they reflect on whether or not they're taking on any financial risk or whether it's being presented to them in a way that there is no financial risk because of that whole lens of, well, what happens if this society isn't here? But each phase was individually costed and seemed like it was going to be affordable for the leasees, as groups of 3 or 4, to be able to pay all the servicing costs so that the town wouldn't be asked to be funding them to make it, you know, to make phase two viable. That we were not asking the town to borrow any money. So I think that's something to keep in mind as it goes forward, is to not get into that situation unless something is presented that would make it worthwhile.
Thank you. So go ahead, Councillor Pondery.
Thank you, Worship. I think one of the important pieces here is when the property was first developed, with the additional the infrastructure that was put in place for the province, I believe 2007, 2008, there was an original master plan. Part of that is those lands were developed for airport related services. Council, unfortunately, in the day, fire sale these properties in a bit of a, maybe I don't classify panic buy, but we sold these properties that would have allowed some fairly significant economic opportunity at the time that didn't quite meet what the envision was for that property. We're in a situation right now where we have very limited land left available on that property, and for us to manage that property and its future development to the best use of the land, we know in the past and some of the inquiries that have come in is, well, what could someone do on that property that's there? Is there an appetite for us to do so? And for, okay, what does that look like? Can I fit this size building or this size hangar on this property for what my envision is for this development? And I think that's what this master plan does cover is, here is the potential of the property with the land that's available left, taking in fact the environmental concerns, taking back the issues with the highway and the easements in place, taking in fact with the development that's already taken and the improvements that have been made. We're in a situation right now with, this is the opportunity, which, you know, and our OCP recognizes the fact that this stays as an airport related facility. But we have very limited land to do what we can on there to provide some form of opportunity. The question now is, do we go ahead and say we're not going to allow any further growth on the airport lands, and we're still going to have to pay for the runway repairs and maintenance as we currently do? But there's nothing generating some revenue to offset those costs. That is strictly on the taxpayers at that point. And that's unfortunate. Or do we proceed down the plan? This growth plan, the way it's staged is we don't hit option 5 unless 1, 2, or 3 are moving forward. It may not happen today. It may not happen 2 years from now. It may not happen 5 years from now. But as these inquiries start coming in, and we have seen in this conversation the last couple months that there's more and more interest now, and I might be interested in relocating either my current my aircraft or my aircraft and maybe a business related to aviation, which was the original concept for that land. Is there an opportunity, and what is that opportunity available to me? And that is going to be the question as council is, do we want to say no to nothing and turn down everything moving forward? Or, well, here's what we have available and here's what we can do. And here's where council shows support moving forward. And I think that's the conversation we're having right now. With that, I would also like to second Councillor Bennett's motion, moving forward with option 1 at this time.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else that wanted to? So before we take the vote, I'm going to tell you that I am not supporting this. And I totally understand all of the options that have been put forward. I just think that there are too many possible hiccups, and I'm okay with what's being handled out there right now. And the number of planes that are coming in, the small ones, I think that there are options for people who want hangars to go to Oliver for one thing. But I do see both sides, absolutely, and this is why this conversation has been going on for a long time. But I have enough issues that I think I can't support it at this point. But I totally understand what everybody else is going through. So could you please read the motion that has been moved and seconded?
Your Worship, the motion that is in front of council now reads that council approves the airport master plan and financial analysis report and supports the development.
Thank you very much. So I will call the question. All in favor? Against? Thank you very much. That has passed. We will now move on to the second report that we have. Find it.
Near the back.
Yes. After the 60 pages, 600 pages. Okay, and the next one is the airport management agreement. Mr. Risling.
Thank you, Your Worship. So, yeah, I just want to, again, feeding off the previous report. ODES has been committed to this airport for some time, and I'm not going to regurgitate all the things that they have done, but certainly they've donated a lot of their personal time to make improvements to the airport. So one of the things I think that's important is ODES has been around for a while. We've had some active aviators that are interested in the airport property and have been just coaching the town along on this property for a number of years. Back in 2021, council entered into an agreement with ODES, and within that agreement, there was a commitment made that reads as follows within that agreement. After substantial completion of the project, the town and ODES will, in good faith, endeavor to negotiate and enter into an operating agreement for the lands whereby the town will retain the ODES to operate the airport. So again, this is something that has been in the works for quite a while, and this is where we are at today. So the overall intent of the agreement is for ODES to take over basically the day-to-day management of the airport. They would also potentially look and listen to potential investors now that we have, I guess, an agreement to actually approve the overall plan, they would start looking at potential investors that would actually make that plan come to fruition. And so, again, I just want to also be clear that right now the town doesn't spend a ton of time on the administration of the airport. So the overall agreement is intended to be revenue neutral to the town. So we do pay for various things for the airport right now, and that is expected to continue. I think the overall expenditures on the airport is roughly around 10,000, which a substantial amount of it is associated with insurance. Maintenance is very minimal. I think around less than $4,000. That's for snow removal, street sweeping. We do add to that overall budget sometimes for other capital items. I can say that some funding was added. It was 2 years ago for line painting, which wasn't completed, but those types of things are one-offs that are included in the budget. What council also approved for this year is a manual gate. So there's funding within the budget on a capital side of, I think, around $6,500 to provide a lock gate with a combination lock on it. So there are pieces outside that annual $10,000 bare minimum that council has approved, and that's likely will continue to potentially occur. Again, the ODES would be putting their budget together or their request together. I mean, they could maybe say we need 2 gates or 3 gates or lights or things like that. Those requests would come to council. ODES would be able to, I guess, maybe look at additional opportunities for maybe some things that occurred on the airport. Maybe additional races. I'm not sure the aviators would like that, but they would be taking over the overall management of the airport. Yes, if there were some things that happened on the airport, would they still be required to take out permits and that type of thing? Absolutely. So they'd still go through the normal process, but they would manage the process and things that occurred on that airport. And I guess one of the big benefits of the town, at least in this agreement, you have active volunteers that want to look after the airport. I see that as actually a huge benefit because we have neglected the airport from an administrative perspective just due to the numerous number of other priorities that we do have. I just want to regurgitate probably for about the 5th time already this morning because I got a feeling this is what's the issue is going to be out in the public. Any future development or improvements that occur in that airport have to be approved by council. So we can't make that more clear. ODES, if this agreement is signed, can't just go and do whatever the heck they want in the airport. It's still going to be a collaborative effort, and I just want to make sure people are aware of that. We also know that this is new ground for all of us, and so the agreement that's proposed is basically a 1-year term. It can be renewed for one more year based on how we agree to the budget process. But the whole intent here is that the intent is to be collaborative, but this is, I guess, one of our bigger agreements that we're going into, and so it's a shorter term. So again, not to, for the public, I think the proposed here is very conservative. So those that are against some of these things that are occurring, you know what, we got a little piece in here that we could pull out, although that is not the intent, but just to give some security. And everything that we've done with ODES to date has been very, very collaborative and ultimately looking to just basically improve that property. So I don't anticipate issues within the agreement, but it is a fail-safe. So again, overall, administration sees like really very little risk with this agreement. Council still has all the decision making, but we have, I guess, with this agreement, an active, educated group on airports. So I think it would do nothing but potentially improve the operation of that airport. So council has a couple options, obviously, to approve the authorize the notice of intention to enter into the management agreement. So we would actually we'll post this. We will put a condition on it because we've heard earlier today that they still have a piece to do within to be in good standing with the registrar, which is have an AGM. So they've done a lot of the other pieces. It's just that one, I guess, technicality to get their society in good standing. So it's basically notice of intention to enter the agreement on a condition of X. Council can change the agreement if they so choose, or ask for additional information. Available for council to ask questions.
Thank you very much. Councillor Chung?
Thank you. Yeah, so again, really to hammer the points that Mr. Risling just presented, one of our issues with the airport is we lack the staffing to manage it. So we haven't really done anything to improve it. It's just been status quo. We maintain it to the bare minimum so that it can be used. If I can use an analogy, the management agreement would be like us hiring a 1-year contract for a staff member, while the staff member is essentially owed. The staff member is given a strategic priorities chart, which we will see later today, and that is the vision of what that role needs to do. Now, that chart is essentially the master plan that we just reviewed, right? So this agreement is a way for us to fill our lack of staff resources so that we can actually see an airport that can thrive while still under the close management of the town. Am I correct?
To your worship, I'd say that's a pretty good summary.
Awesome. I would like to move option 1.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Or,
I'll
no,
make a
go ahead, you
comment
have a question?
Before get a seconder. There's a typo in 3.1. I keep mentioning it, never gets changed. It should be 225, 3.1. I have a concern with this, though. There's 2 documents, C and D, as attachments, and there's no real money attached to them.
Yep.
So if this got passed, how do we put money to this in the future?
Your worship, but good question. So what the plan is it depends on when it's signed and when we're going to be approving the budget. So because of a timing issue, well, we have a timing issue here. So the intent has always been, which Odes is aware, that basically the amount of money that the town puts into the airport today would still occur. It'd be a different process where, we clean the runways, and right now, if we do it 4 times a year, we'd continue. Maybe Odes wants to do it 6 times. So they'd say, oh, we need another $500 to pay for the operations team to go out there 2 more times. And so Odes hasn't had a chance to actually put a budget together. And so nothing's here. So our plan for the 2026 year would be for administration to continue with our regular process, which is pretty minimal on the budget side. But if council's showing the appetite to actually proceed with the agreement with Odes, which we would want them to actually provide us some feedback on the budget. So we have talked a little bit about that at the airport committee, but because of the timing, nothing has actually come forward directly from them. But it's a bit of a timing struggle to begin with right now. So our plan is, in a nutshell, keep the budget the same for each years, but actually attempt to get some feedback from Odes on some potential improvements as they see fit, and council would have the ability to okay or not okay those from the budget.
Well, I guess I'd follow up then. So why don't Schedule C, we put the 6,000 or 8,000 that we already put into it on Schedule C, since it's a timing issue? I mean, I'd like to see that, something in writing, there's a number there, and we have been paying 6,000 to 10,000 every year for the airport to cover off what's in Schedule B. So I would think it would be important, at least for the first year, to have a number there.
So we could definitely put in what was there in 2025. We haven't really looked at 2026. So that's like, we could give an indication to the public as to what it is, if that helps, because we haven't developed anything for 2026, but I understand exactly what you're saying.
Again, I just struggle with a blank document. I think it would be important to put a number in there on Schedule C And then when you get to D, again, that could change. It's got to go to budget for sure, but I mean, we could all have a bad day and we turn down money on that D. So there's still a hypothetical there. I just struggle with blank documents that we're passing 5 months ahead of.
I share those concerns. I mean, maybe even a better approach is to actually not include these and actually and take them both on. I think that would be a
So the motion is to go with option one, and are you suggesting that, well, that was moved?
Didn't get a second.
No, yeah, correct.
I'll go to third. I'll go to option 2. If we change it to taking C and.
C and D off.
Option 1.
So, well, hang on. So we're taking off option 1 then. Are you okay? No. I know we didn't. So that's what we're waiting for now. So did you want to go ahead, please?
This is a follow-up. If and when we do amend this agreement, would it be coming back to council with every single amendment?
yes. And one of the reasons is we won't actually have a signed agreement until after they have their AGM. So it's going to be a real almost chicken egg.
Yeah. So
Yeah, most
every
things, so-
change that would occur in this document would be like we'd have an update on the document, and then it would require, you know, of council full vote in order to make these changes into fruition.
So one of the struggles is going to be if we actually sign the document, like just looking at the time chart right now, let's just say it is signed October. We won't have an approved budget potentially until February. So in here, it's okay to actually put the 25 budget and show what the results, but it's October, there's almost nothing left. So there is a bit of a timing issue with keeping it in, but we can modify a little bit so that it makes sense depending on when this may be signed, if it is approved. So I'm not really answering your question probably as clearly as you like. There's ways of getting around it, but I can appreciate both sides with each direction.
So I think we need some clarification here. Are we going with option 1 that Councillor Chong has? Do we have to deal with that first and ask if there is but I will ask if there is a seconder. And if that's the case, we will move forward. If there is no seconder, it would then be taken off. Am I correct, Mrs. Coulson?
An option would be for an amendment to be suggested if Councillor Chong is agreeable.
Yeah.
Seconder, it's no vote. I'll second it.
So it's been seconded. So this is option 1, that we enter into a management agreement for a 1-year term with what's presented. So are we ready to vote on that part?
So are we also applying the friendly amendment to the motion now, or are we going to strike this down and then do it to option
That's what I
2?
was getting at. With your permission, you could make the friendly amendment right now and go with option 1 and include the fact that schedules C and D would be removed.
Oh,
Is
I'm comfortable with that. Yeah.
Is the seconder okay with that? So the motion then is that we go with, is it option 2 now? No, it's option 1, but with an additional thing that C and D be removed from the schedule. Thank you. All right, so I will call the question. All in favor? Nobody against? Okay. Thank you very much. All right. Thank you, Mr. Underwood, for sticking around. You decided to do it from the comfort of your office rather than sit here with us, right? Anyway, thank you. Thank you very
everyone.
much.
Bye.
We will now move on to Ms. Duong, and this would be the small scale multi-unit housing implementation phase 2. Thank you. You okay with how we deal with the rest of them? Okay, go ahead, Shannon.
Thank you. So just to start us off with a bit of background, I did trim this down because you have all heard the background on the small scale multi-unit housing multiple times at this point. But just as a quick reminder, with Bill 44, the Local Government Act was amended by the province as a means of introducing a number of different amendments to aid in the delivery of more housing across the province. So as part of those amendments, there were some new requirements that were introduced that relate to the completion of housing needs reports, which had already been required previously, but now the province is requiring additional criteria to be met. Additionally, there are new requirements related to undertaking amendments to a local government's official community plan and zoning bylaws in association with those updated housing needs reports requirements. So in terms of deadlines, the new legislation or the new regulations do set out a number of different deadlines that a local government must meet. For the transitionary period, there wasn't a deadline to complete an interim housing needs report as of January 1st, 2025, which the town has already done. And the next deadline that we're looking at is December 31st, 2025, wherein a local government must complete official community plan and zoning amendments to actually pre-zone for the total number of required housing units that have been identified under that interim housing needs report. In terms of previous council consideration, so as mentioned, the housing needs report update was completed recently, and that was accepted by council on February 11th, 2025. After that report was completed, staff did enter into discussions with the Ministry of Housing after we had flagged that the town had been granted by the province an extension to meet the small scale multi-unit housing requirements as it relates to permitting densities across the town that are stipulated under the Act. So we weren't really sure how the housing needs findings would actually interact with the extension request being approved and whether or not we actually had to undertake official community plan and zoning amendments because it would essentially be seen as potentially unraveling the extension that we just got. So in order to support the ministry's overall assessment of the town's unique circumstances and to comply with our legislative requirements, the town did engage with Urban Systems, who had completed a zoning capacity analysis, which they had sent to us on June 2nd. So a very welcome surprise was that the current zoning that applies across the town actually has enough capacity to facilitate the development of over 6,300 units. And that is a substantial, it substantially exceeds what is actually required of the town to meet its 20-year projections under the housing needs report, which is just over 1,000 units. So now kind of taking that and looking at what is required of us under the Local Government Act, one of the new requirements that we do need to meet is that we have to permit the use and the type of density or the density that is necessary to accommodate that 20-year projection. That's stipulated under the housing needs report. But given that we already exceed that amount, we don't actually need to amend our zoning bylaw at this time because it already meets this section of the LGA. On a similar note, the Local Government Act does require us to undertake associated official community plan amendments to ensure that our policy statements as well as our map designations do provide for that 20-year total number of needed housing units as well. So no OCP amendments are required to that effect. However, the Local Government Act now does require us to include housing policies respecting each of the different classes of housing needs that are required to be addressed under our most recent housing needs report. And because the OCP bylaw doesn't fully encompass these housing policies, we do see amendments being required to the official community plan at this time. So we have attached a draft official community plan amendment bylaw, which is proposing to introduce a new section under existing section 6.b, and that just speaks to the new housing needs report related requirements that have been set out under the Local Government Act through Bill 44. And it also outlines the various findings of the housing needs report update that was completed for the town, and that does include a breakdown of the 5-year and 20-year housing needs. Additionally, it is proposing to revamp the policy section. So the way that we've drafted it is we've collapsed the policy subsections into one overall broad subsection and also tied in the housing needs report. So the town's OCP bylaw actually did a good job already of speaking to very specific use or housing needs classes. So like seniors housing and affordable housing and rental housing. However, it now needs to touch on all of the different classes of local needs that are required to be addressed under the housing needs report. So we are proposing new policies which speak to supporting a variety of housing types and tenures in the urban containment area. So that's the area where we would have the necessary infrastructure, essential amenities, and services to accommodate that type of growth. Additionally, we are including policy relating to supporting the creation of a more favorable regulatory environment to help overcome barriers to housing construction. So that kind of is a play on some of the DAPR amendments that had been made that allow local governments to more better streamline their development approval processes. And lastly, a policy is being proposed to, with respect to housing and homelessness, to advocate to the province that they undertake improvements to the development approval process through updates to the Local Government Act. And just as a quick housekeeping amendment, we are also proposing to update the projects list that we have under the implementation section of the OCP bylaw, just to show which project we've completed thus far. So with that in mind, we are seeking council's direction in terms of these amendments, either that the OCP amendment bylaw be initiated at this time or that the status quo be maintained. However, we do want to flag that while the option is available, of course, to maintain the status quo, these amendments are being sought as a means of meeting a statutory requirement. So with all that in mind, we are recommending that this project be initiated, and this would be, if council supports this direction, we'd be returning to council for first and second reading at a future meeting.
Thank you very much to Ms. Duong. This seems kind of confusing, of course, but you've explained it well. So thank you so much for that. Council, could I have someone?
One question.
Yeah.
This would go out to public if it gets passed for any feedback after this, or?
I don't, go ahead, Shannon.
Yes, so OCP amendments do require public consultation.
Okay. Usually what that's put in here if we need it, so a public meeting. So we will do that as a public meeting that we hold at council, or is it we ask people to comment and send them in?
So we would be looking at doing, typically we have a projects page that's dedicated to providing information to the public. However, we would generally be undertaking a public information meeting for OCP amendments. So we would anticipate that occurring, details to be sorted out later. But yes, a public hearing would typically be required, and that would be held at council.
Thank you very much. So are you making a motion, Councillor Poderica?
No, thank you, Your Worship. I move option 1. that
Thank
we
you.
initiate
Is
the
there a seconder? Councillor King? Any concerns? All in favor? Thank you very much. Next, we have the senior center sewer line replacement. Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The report before you is a request from the senior center in relation to their sewer line replacement. They were having issues that go from the building to the main line, and they're requesting financial assistance. Just to give you a little bit of background on the senior center, the lease agreement that they have expires in 2094, so it's a 99-year lease at the time. The future replacement of the building, dedicated reserve, $100,000 is something that we put in the budget last year. And the money that we have, the 100,000, was just a start, a very small start, to have something in our budget as a dedicated reserve for issues that would come up. But nothing has been allocated from that actual reserve. According to the senior center, there were no issues until the old museum was demolished. That might be just a coincidence. And that's something that we would do further investigation on. They did show that they had a camera in the line and it was blocked significantly. Multiple issues with the sewer line. They did contact a local contractor. I have spoken to that contractor and they're waiting, for permission from the town to do that, obviously with our CAO and our Director of Operations. So what they're proposing to do is put a 4-inch PVC line in there, which would be suitable. We don't know what type of pipe is there right now, and the estimated cost for that was $4,700. And obviously they're requesting 50% of that. When the line is open, we, the town, would have a better opportunity to have a better investigation and to see if we can do something further. So with the picture here and why I wanted to include it, the line actually goes right underneath this. I'm not sure what was here before, but it's been like that the whole time I'm here. And this possibly would have to be, I'm not sure if this is actually going to have to be removed. It was just, stated that it is underneath this here. So the lease agreement that we have with the senior center says that they are responsible for any and all maintenance related to the building and to the grounds. They're aware of that, obviously. Digging up this area during the summer season also would be very difficult, especially with the special events and all the activity that goes on in that area. And this is a very high priority for the senior center. They would like to get this done as soon as possible. So the options before council, as you can see, there's a decision-making sign there. The committee direct administration to work with the senior center and cover 50% of the costs, or that the committee direct administration to pay 100% of the repair. Or option 3, committee direct administration to bring forward a budget amendment to use 50% of the cost for the pipe replacement from the $100,000 dedicated reserve that we have, or that the committee direct administration to do nothing right now. And we're bringing this forward to get some direction from council so that we can actually deal with the senior center building.
Thank you very much. I have a question. If the suggestion that they're going to dig up part of this and it's going to cost $4,700, where does that end, and why should the museum have had any part in it? If we find that there is a problem, what's the extension of this line that they're concerned about up to where it would tie into the next one? Is there quite a distance, and we might then be on the hook for that? Is that what the possibility is?
Potentially, it depends on where the lines and the actual property, not just the line for the tie-in, but the actual property line that would be part of the senior center. Now, if the line shows that there's some kind of major obstruction beyond their line, obviously that's something that the town would have to take care of. If it's not, and it's within the area that the senior center actually utilize, then it would be as per their agreement. And we're really not sure. The actual line itself, when the old museum was taken down, I think the line, and according to our Director of Operations and our CAO could correct me if I'm wrong, the main line goes to the northwest corner of the parking lot behind the Sage, and then it goes further south. So it doesn't go up to the top of the highway to the road. However, we don't know. So the cost to do something to where it actually hits the line could be anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000.
Wow. Do we have any any knowledge of where the lines are underneath there, or is that something we're gonna find out when we start digging it up?
Madam Mayor,
Oh.
we did have, when we actually hired, the company to take down the facility, we did do an RFP. I was trying to find some, information on that this morning, as I wasn't part or the director involved with that. We do have some information, and I know it's too bad Steve didn't stay on the line. He probably would know. But there could be, we should have something, yes, but we probably won't know, because this line is such a short distance and in a smaller area. When we did our asset management plan, only the main lines, were actually identified and not everything
Yeah,
inclusive.
okay. Thank you very much. Councillor King?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I thought they ran a camera through the pipe and knew approximately where it was plugged.
All I was told is that they actually put a camera in the pipe and they knew, like, they couldn't pinpoint exactly where it was, just when they actually saw the actual, obstruction. And that's all I know. That's as far as we went with that.
Well, I guess then I wonder about the quote being big enough number if it happens to be under that cement you showed us.
Well, I think what's going to happen is either they do a directional dig underneath that or they have to remove some of it. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But I did talk to the contractor and I just let him know that, the quote that they provided, $4,700, would be a quote where they make their dig, replace the line and put it back with no issues whatsoever.
And then just want to ask the question to CO. I don't know, are we allowed to use the money from we put that 100,000? We can't use it for this, can we, or can we?
Well, I think, through your worship, council couldn't do what they like. I think when we originally, a report came forward about a year ago, it talked about the general condition of our properties and the life cycles. And again, I just want to emphasize, like, that was I call it a higher level, mid to higher level view. It didn't go into the minutia of all the pieces and showed that we had a significant deficit. Now, then council did approve some funding. And I'll call it almost multi-purpose. I mean, one of the things that you're supposed to do in asset management, you're supposed to have funding that's put aside to replace that structure. And that's supposed to be a fund that continues to grow so you can replace X with X. And if you have to build bigger, because in 50 years you're doing it for a bigger population, that then typically is borrowed for. The problem we have is we do not have enough funding in our general operating budget to just keep up with the general maintenance. So this fund of 100,000, if you look at the exact title, it talks about the cost to start to replacing some of these properties. So it was intended to go in Desert Park, which might be a topic that's on a future agenda. There should be a couple million in the bucket to replace what's there. Maybe you want to add on, so it'd be more. That's what that $100,000 was intended for. But we're really running into a problem with a lot of these buildings, running into problems that we don't have budgeted for. We have this one, and if we have to do our line, that'd be maybe like another 100,000 that we did not anticipate. And that's really under our water or utility budget. So it's a different budget than the building fund that you're talking about. But I know it's all kind of interrelated because it's all asset management. But we like to keep our utilities separate from our buildings.
I like to move option one.
All right, we've got that, but we'll let Meyer speak first and then we'll.
I just have a question, Joe. The master parks plan, there's the washrooms are right there. So the sewer's got to go to there from somewhere, probably down the same general direction. Are we going to be digging up, putting a line in the senior center, then in 6 months or whatever, getting a grant and then doing the master park plan and do some changes down there and having to change that again?
Through to Councillor Bennett, there were no anticipated changes to our washrooms for gyro. But if there's any connection at all, from the senior center to that. Obviously, we would have to look at that when it's dug up. But we haven't had any issues to the washroom, no backups per se or anything to that effect. So that's a good thing. But I guess we would know. But to answer your question, there was no plan to dig any sewer lines or add any washrooms to that effect because they're so new anyway, right? Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
So we've had a motion to go with option one. Did you have a question
A
or a
question
concern?
before
Yes,
making a
go
motion.
ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Does this mean we would agree to cover 50% of the initial ask of the half 50% of the 40%, 4,700? Or is this 50% of all potential costs related to this project?
Just as it's written, it would be just the 4,700 estimate. And then, we'll have to figure it out, I guess, unfortunately, but, that's, yeah.
So once it's dug up.
Yeah,
So,
because the rest of the
yeah.
line is totally ours. Like they have the first, whatever, 10 feet, 20 feet, and that under the lease, that is their responsibility. And that's what they're asking for, 50% of that 20 feet. When they do the dig, we're gonna be sitting on pins and needles and taking a look at that pipe and just hope that the pipe is sound. If it's not, well, then in 2 months when we come forward with the utility budget, that project will be in there depending on how bad it is. Or if it's an emergency, which they will just keep having to keep digging. I doubt that, but
so there could be, once they dig it up, there could be an emergency at that point. So we really don't know. We could say, yes, we'll pay half of this for right now, but all it does is open up can of worms maybe.
yeah, I think I try to keep them separate because we have, I don't know how many kilometers of lines, which we know. I mean, we heard from Mr. Underwood last year or 2 years ago that we have a lot that are well past their life. And so council approved some increases to start replacing those, and we're doing that on a priority basis. Talking to the frontline crew to say which ones lines are breaking the most, and we're hoping, we can plug along because it was kind of a 20-year plan to start to get ahead a little bit of the curve of the infrastructure that's already past its life. Now these small lines, they weren't included in the asset management plan. So as these small lines have a problem, we'll just have to approach it as they come. So it usually what happens when there is a break, we'll just replace that 10 feet or whatever it is and try to move on. So if there is something there, that's likely what we do. We wouldn't go into a $100,000 or $200,000 project unless it was absolutely essential. I don't think that is the case here, hopefully.
But the concern is, hang on, I'll get to you, is that they're saying that they didn't have a problem before the museum and curling club were removed. So do we know what happened with the water and sewer lines that were connected to the museum? Do you know, Mr. Davis?
No, it's definitely unknown, but we could easily find that. That wouldn't be a problem. I just don't have that information in front of me. I assume, it got capped, whether it's just got a connection put in there to keep it flowing. Not sure.
There's so many unknowns. Go ahead, Ken.
One last question. To me, they must have 2 sewer lines because their washrooms are still open upstairs in the facility.
Well, they're actually operational right now. They just had that block. They had the block fixed. They had it fixed multiple times. So it's
Okay,
not
probably.
shut down. Yeah, that's correct.
They can still use the facility and it's fine. All right, so we have a motion on the floor that has been made, but it has not been seconded. Am I correct? Is there a seconder for this? Thank you. It's now been seconded. Are there any other concerns or questions about this? Go ahead, Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, I have some concerns because we're just approving 50% of whatever number. We don't have a clue. For some reason, it kind of surprised me that these pipes, we paid Mr. Underwood and his companies lots of dollars over the year to go in and go in and with cameras and look at all the different pipes. And we don't know if they're pipe. We don't have any idea what's down there. It just kind of scares me to say, yeah, let's just go write a blank check, because this could be a $200,000 project we're approving.
No, we're only approving 2,200, half of the 4,700 is what we're approving.
That's what I heard.
That's what it says.
I agree, but it could open up a can of worms. That's what I think too. Yeah.
Yes, with your worship, I mean, it is accurate. Mr. Underwood stated, like, he did not do a lot of the smaller lines off our main trunks. He did not include that in our asset management plan, and we knew that as a risk, and that's why even funding the number that was in there was underinflated. Like, you know, so we knew that, and that was okay, because the cost benefit of doing another, you know, all these smaller lines going to one property is exponential, but we should have had an extra amount in the budget to take care of these situations. So I think the report is still sound. It was presented in a way that showed or illustrated that he did not do that. And that's okay. We could pay to do all these other little tiny small lines. Now you're correct in the piece that so approving this again is right on their lease. So it goes up to their lease border, like on the map, they get 20 feet around their property. I'm making this up, but that line from the senior center to where the lease ends is their responsibility, and they are replacing, they've already they're committing to actually replacing from the building to the property line, and that's 5,000. You know, that's what they've been quoted. To give or take a little bit more, maybe, but that's basically the quote. So that's pretty locked in. Our issue on it. So doing that is one thing council can do. It goes outside the requirements of the lease, but council can pay for that 50%. Now the next piece is, which is our concern and what becomes a town's responsibility, from where their imaginary line ends halfway through that parking lot on Gyro Beach, all the way up to the storm sewer line close to the Sage. That's where, like, we're panicking a little bit. If that's been cracked there, if that's Clay Tyler, something, we know that's one of those small lines that we got to up on our priorities as far as replacing it if it's in rough shape. So does that make sense? It's the piece just like on your property, you're responsible from the property line to your house. That's what this guy's doing. And over here, we don't know how bad that is yet. Gerald, sorry.
Gerald, did you want to add something?
Just as a matter of comment, we haven't had any issues with any of our sewer that I know of at Gyro Park, at Park Place, down in that area at all. I guess we might be at the tail end of that with the washrooms at Gyro because we're lower, the senior center, and I think if that sewer line goes below the parking lot south, then maybe that's all that might be off on that tangent area. But we haven't had any issues whatsoever beyond that. So I'm thinking positively, I guess, that way. So
So I totally understand Councillor Bennett's concern about this, and my concern is, why did this only start happening once the museum line was capped? So I'm wondering if it's better for us to have a look at that issue first before we move forward, considering that the senior center has removed the blockage and it's operational right now. I don't know. I'm just bring that up as a
I
point.
looked at the comment about the museum. It's just a hypothetical. It's not really proven. Has nothing to do with this, really.
They're suggesting that it does. That's, yeah. Well, I think that it sort of behooves us to have a look at that and say, is that something, because it's very close, is that something that has, that makes sense to look at before we commit to anything or not? Mr. Risling, what do you think?
Your worship, I don't think so. This is just that 20 feet from there to there. It sounds like, if they've been having to root it several times, it likely means that the pipe is cracked. Maybe it's clay tile and roots are going in there, and because it's good plant food. As soon as you root them, they're back in there right away. So there's likely a crack along there, and that's what's filling them. It is possible that the crack is on our side, way up here, and it's growing all the way in. Which, if once we pull it up, we take a look. Well, there's probably the break on theirs because they went in there to take a look and they can see what's in their side. There's another one over here. We may have to deal with our side over there, but I don't think the whole museum piece, I think it's a bit of a red herring in this. They likely capped it, and it just capped, and we'll stay there until we rip it all out and decide what we do. It could have. I mean, this stuff is old, right?
Yeah.
We're talking pipes that's the whole problem.
I
Right?
know.
Mr. Underwood presented to us 2 years ago. We waited too long to start replacing stuff, and now,
Yeah,
maybe it was a
costly.
cat that drove over it. Maybe it was just
Yeah.
things happen.
Some of
Okay.
those old trees, so I'll second the motion.
So-
If we're restricting it to that.
The motion is that the number one, am I correct? And it's been moved and seconded that we go with option. Go ahead, is
Just
Mrs.
a quick
Colton.
suggestion for clarity. Does council wish to amend what's being recommended right now to 50% of the estimated 4,700 as opposed to just 50% of the costs? Because we discussed that, but it's not in the recommendation.
Absolutely, that is something that makes sense. So, is that what your intention was of the 4,700? Am I correct? Seconder, you okay with that? All right, thank you. All in favor? Thank you very much.
What do we do when we get to $5,000?
I don't know. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Davis, for presenting on that. Let's hope we don't have more of these bad news things. All right, next, interesting to look at the copy of the Land Title Act in 96. And, Tom Shields was the mayor, and the people that signed off on it were very strong volunteers in this town for many years. So it was interesting to go through that. Okay, next, resort municipality funding options. Mr. Davis, it's you again.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This report is coming forward to council. We are currently going through our strategy for 2025 to 2027. Some of the funding that got left over from the previous strategy in 22 to 24 is with public art and heritage. We have we do have $25,000 that we had dedicated to that. And we want to get an idea or follow through on how we can spend that money. We have reached out to a few groups, specifically the museum and their White Arts National Association, as they're very proactive and have some projects happening. Just to provide a little bit of background, some of the options that the museum brought forward includes a wall mural on the garden side of the museum. They would have it agricultural themed with the fruit labels and native plants. And another option, what they could utilize is to add to the interpretive signage. So they have a number of signs around town right now. This is in their plan to do this. It's not like on their forefront at all, but it is in their plan, and they could have something put together. They just are not exactly sure how much they would have, possibly around $3,000 a sign is what we were told. The White Arts National Association suggested a couple of items as well that they could utilize this funding. a mini mural festival and street fair. It's just something that we would add into our shoulder season, which would be definitely a good boost for tourism. A mural on a private business, which is something they were trying to bring forward and probably do on their own, but as a municipality and through this funding, it probably wouldn't be applicable. They would also, another option would to increase their funding for some of the events that they do now, specifically the All Hallows. A winter art festival to coincide with Light Up wouldn't be a bad idea, or the Fire and Ice Festival that Destination Soyuz does. And then their last item, and they have many more, I'm sure, would have been a giant puppet workshop led by an international artist. I just thought some of those were fantastic and really shows the diversity of our artistic in Soyuz. So the options from our RMI program, and as you can see, our beautiful 85th Street Plaza funded through this program. It must be spent by March 31st of 2027, even though it was from the previous year of 22 to 24. It's something that's actually been carried forward. There was no estimate received for the museum mural, but the private mural that we talked to the White Arts National was around 15,000. When I did talk to the museum following this report, there was an actual cost per foot, so it would be dependent upon the type of paint, how much, like the size, etc., and all that fun stuff. And I think any of the opportunities will enhance and sustain our artistic offerings in the community for sure. So the options before council, that the committee use these funds to assist the museum with interpretive signage to a total expense of $25,000, which is the total budget. That the committee use these funds to assist the museum with the mural and the remaining funding to interpretive signage to a total expense of $25,000. The committee use these funds to support the White Arts National Association to develop a winter art festival to coincide with Light Up. That council support either proposed project to a maximum of $25,000, subject to the event or project fulfilling the criteria of the RMI program, or that council support another project that would be applicable to the RMI funding for public art and heritage.
Thank you very
much. We're bringing it.
Thank you very much. You've given us lots of options here. I just had a question. I know that White Arts have applied for grants from RMI or Grant and Aid or both, and I can't quite remember.
Both.
Both.
Yeah.
And has the museum ever applied for grants?
Yes, they've applied for not for RMI, but for the community service grants. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they've both applied. All right. Thank you. Council, what do you think?
I have a question of always. Do you have any idea of what it would cost to bring that person in to make the big puppets? Did you give any idea?
No, it was just an option put out there. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Richard. I think both the two identified organizations have done a lot to foster the culture and arts in the community. Then they continue to do so. The museum continues in their work. Juana's brought some pretty some new events. I know they were a little disappointed yesterday with the weather for their mermaid party, but I think both are worthy. I'd like to see them kind of share that. I would probably move forward option 4 and give the ability that both can receive the funding up to the maximum, as long as 25,000, subject to them fulfilling requirements of the RMI program.
So that means that you're suggesting that both Wide Arts and the museum share 50-50 on that amount of money?
That motion covers that if only an amendment to adjust that, but.
Okay. Is there a seconder for that?
So maybe just on that point, so is there a preference as to what it's going to be used for? So it goes to the museum. Is it the interpretive signs or is it part of the mural? And if it's like just maybe that's the follow-up piece. it's just, how do we decide as administration? Well, we can decide.
Yeah.
May not like the decision.
When you make that motion, did you have something in mind?
I'm just thinking here, it'd be nice if it's something that's a bit long lasting. Now, on the mural side, it is identified, obviously it's on a private business, obviously, what is the lifetime of that surface being present for that to exist? So I'd be a bit more flexible. That makes it a little bit more difficult, I guess, in this case, based on what has been proposed by Juan. I think I'd like to see them, permanent can be enjoyed more than a one-off event, just for a number of reasons. I think probably a bit more flexible. Obviously, on the museum side, they're looking at two projects, whether it's their mural or their signage. I think either one of those for Juana. I know they've got a bunch of great ideas they keep coming up with, and I'm okay. I'm a bit more flexible on that one there, maybe with the exception of the mural, but just my thought on that.
Go ahead, Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I I agree, but I just sort of think the mural, like at the museum on the side wall, that's kind of hidden in behind there, and I don't know how many people walk in the park. There's a gate there, and how many people would really see it, where you would get if the mural is somewhere else. I think signage or something would be more. And on a private, I don't think RMI would allow us to go paint on somebody's private building.
So I'm in agreement as well. I would rather see for the museum part, the interpretive signage versus the mural. That's just my suggestion. Councillor
I
King?
guess there was discussion to put a big mural on that container on the park side, and everybody driving by can see it there. It's close enough to the front where you walk by, you could see it. So I think it was more to cover up the front, closer to the sidewalk for a mural.
Possibly, but I don't think that's what they actually brought forward when we discussed something new. Yeah.
And so what are you suggesting for Juana? Which one of the options did you want to include in that? Or wasn't the mural?
I would, in this case, there would be probably counter to what I suggested earlier, but in that case, there I'd be flexible enough to place it towards a event to be determined by, I'm guessing, staff in this case here, as long as it met my requirements.
So an event such as the Winter Festival or the All Hallows celebration, which they already get funded for. The All Hallows, yeah.
Enhance their events.
Okay. So that is the motion. Has somebody seconded it? Myers, did you second it?
Yeah.
Okay, so is that clear enough that we can vote on it, or do you, what does it actually say?
We
Mrs.
could
Wilson?
append to the wording there, just to say with a preference for interpretive signage for the museum and in a community event for the Wide Arts National Association.
Could I, all I was going to ask, is it like an equal amount, or it would be if they only want it, less than 5,000, and then the rest would go to the other group, etc., or whatever. I know they would both easily use that, half and half. My other comment, and I don't know if I should even say this, nothing bad. It could be previewed, I guess, through the grant evaluation committee, even though it's not a grant, just because we would even get a better understanding, and we know what the money is. We can have that approved per se, subject to it being 25,000, I guess, max.
Is that okay with you, making the motion that we then move it to the grant evaluation committee to decide? Or Mr. Risling, are looking
So just for
skeptical?
clarity, I think, and I'm trying to read your mind, is basically that, like, if half went to the museum on interpretive signage, that's probably okay for council to do. If you're going to event type stuff, it's probably better to go through the grant evaluation committee. It's especially if it, like, the way I'm seeing it is, especially if it's an event, that grant committee gets several requests.
Yep.
You know, every year, and it'd probably be better for them to determine.
So I guess the point is it going to be 50-50? So 50% to the museum and the other 50% to WANA to, which would then go through the grant evaluation committee. Does that make sense? Okay.
Interpretation signs, since they've done some before, but what's the cost of one of them?
3,000, approximately 3,000. No, it was signs. Yeah.
There were quite a few of them done, and some of them, do you remember they had them, there was sort of a walk around and you
yep.
could go. I think some of them may be outdated or need to be redone as well. So that would be an option, I suppose, wouldn't it, if that's what they decided?
Yeah, I
Yes?
think they received some grant funding this year, last year to do that on some of those faded signs. I
Oh.
think,
Okay,
I'm pretty
I
sure you
didn't know that.
recall, as
Yeah.
part of the town grant system, they received some funding to resurface, some of those faded, some of them are pretty faded. So,
So have we got an option that makes sense, Mrs. Colson?
I'm writing as fast as I can here. So I think the way we're headed is that council support 12,500 for the museum's interpretive signage, and for the remaining 12,500 to move to the grant evaluation committee for future decision. Yes?
With WANA?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
okay. Thank you. Is that okay with the mover and the seconder? All in favor? Thank you very much. All right. Next. Quarterly Council Strategic Priorities Chart.
thank you, your worship. So it's that time of the year again, quarterly. Repeat the same thing every quarter. Basically, when this council started, they established a priorities chart, which we review every quarter. You also established an infrastructure strategy report that you're able to review every quarter. This is a time when we actually take a look at your priorities and the estimated timelines to actually give a status update on the priorities on the chart. And then also, council has the opportunity to look at the priorities and see if they want to make changes. So it's kind of an update on where we're at from an administration perspective, and council has the ability to make changes as we go forward. So it's open to council.
Okay, so are you suggesting that we look at attachment 3, which has the latest suggestions? Am I correct?
Attachment 1 provides where we're at as far as the projects, because administration, we provide kind of estimated completion dates. Some have been completed and some are behind for various reasons. Definitely some of them are associated with still some staff vacancies, and others are just various other issues. But again, this is kind of a snapshot of where we're at. Attachment 3 includes those same strategies and also provides an amended completion date on those projects. So I think that you can certainly ask why things are delayed on some of them. That's fair game. Also, the probably real important piece is to ensure that the strategies of council are reflected on attachment 3, or you can change if you see fit.
So the first one, the zoning bylaw short-term rentals, it was going to be May and now it's September. Do we have any idea whether that is doable?
So, well, this, your worship, this has changed multiple times. And if you'd asked me a quarter ago when I put the new date there, I would have said, yeah, we're certainly hopeful. I really am hopeful. It is with the lawyers. So there has been some struggles there, but yeah, we're hoping September. That's what we're hearing. we're hoping that it's gonna actually come forward at the next meeting with the material and, you know, so for at least some kickoff additional debate.
The August meeting.
Yeah,
Okay.
the August meeting. And so September gives us some additional time for debate,
Perfect.
that type of thing.
Perfect. Councillor Bennett?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just reading yesterday that Whistler and Tofino have both dropped out of the short term. So maybe we want to look in to see what's happening. That's the one I sent to the mayor. I just it was,
That Whistler, that Tofino had already enacted it.
yeah,
They-
they said it, they were dropping out. I think it was Tofino.
Do you know anything about that?
I
Terry,
know it was
I
Whistler
have
for
not.
sure.
I do know that some of the resort municipalities are in a provincial program and some have their own programs. I do know that I think every single other one, resort municipalities do allow short-term rentals. It's just what parameters they have around them. So some have opted in to the provincial program. Some have established their own rules, but still have a short-term rental program. We're probably the only ones that don't have a short-term rental program. And so I don't know, I don't know if Whistler was actually part of the provincial one or not. And so maybe they were, and now they're going back to their own type of a
Possibly.
program.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll find it and I'll send you a copy.
Okay, so that seems to make sense that we would hope to have something decided by September. So what are your thoughts, everybody else? Is that okay to leave that particular item on there as stated? Yes.
I'll leave
Councillor
that
King.
on. I just got another comment.
Sure.
If you're ready for it. On the number 3, I think it's about time to take that aquatic center off that advocacy and partnership and maybe add on the Chamber of Commerce.
And which area was that? Of here? Okay, it's on there. All right. I agree. I don't see that 18 million is going to be found anywhere. That was our share of it, I believe, at the last, so yeah. Sorry, Gerald. So I'm in agreement with Councillor King on this one. I think that the Chamber of Commerce and Economic Development probably could be better served in there rather than the aquatic center feasibility. Is there, does everybody agree to that one? Yep. Okay, so we've agreed to that. Is there anything else? It looks like the airport management agreement has been okayed today, so that could be, we would put not September, or we would put it right now, July? No, September. Okay, all right. How are we doing with filling management vacancies? That says a third quarter.
Well,
We're still looking.
we're still looking. We still have basically 3 positions within operations. The 2 so we have the director, Tyler came on board probably 3 months ago now. We still have been unsuccessful in the 2 superintendent positions. We're rejigging those job descriptions a little bit and they were reposted again. I think it was last week. So then we're hopeful with a little bit of rejigging, maybe we'll get some more interest. And we also have the technician position that's vacant. So those have been vacant for in excess of a year. We're again
Still on there.
hopeful. Let's cross our fingers. They've been advertised several times and hopefully we're
So
some fruit.
thank you. So the Resort Municipality Initiative Plan has been crossed off there, but in fact, we're still have a little bit of work to do on that one. Is that correct? A few things that need to be adjusted?
So this was interesting how this worked. So there was a deadline of June 30th that, so we made it through council last go round with it approved. We received feedback from the provincial government a couple days after council approval that they'd like to see some, I call it wordsmithing or edits, and then some additional clarity on some of the projects. We just met with them yesterday at 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And so, yeah, we got some good direction, and we're gonna make some edits, and then we're gonna get the province to actually approve it administratively and then likely bring it back to council. So, yeah, when we did this report, we thought it was approved then, and so it's just been a bit of a timing thing. So you're correct. I guess it's not officially approved, so probably shouldn't be.
We shouldn't
slashed
cross
out.
it off yet.
Probably should leave
because
it there, but again, the good news is it sounds like all of our projects are okay. It's basically a wordsmithing exercise,
Okay.
but technically speaking, we should probably keep,
I,
I guess,
I
5 on
think
there.
so. We don't want to cross it off right now because it hasn't quite been completed. Okay, is there anything in operations? Are those master plan road condition, has the RFP gone out or it's going out in September?
Yeah, we're working on it right now. So some of these projects council has approved in 2024 and some in 2026. So the RFP is being worked on, almost finished. So yeah, we're gonna try to put smaller steps in here so we can have a goal. Yeah, that
Okay.
we and meet it, and rather than completion, it's like let's
Okay.
get to this stage, then this stage, and this stage. So
Okay, and what about the snow and ice policy? They're still working on it, coming back in October?
but that's
correct?
the goal. We'd like to actually have that policy in front of council before winter. If we didn't get something passed October, November,
Okay.
probably be later, or maybe it does get passed and we don't implement any changes until the following year. But
Okay.
our goal is to still do it before the snow flies, the little bit that we get, hopefully.
And so what about the fire services, the Protection Superior Tanker Shuttle service for rural fire? That's still on the agenda for now?
Yes, that's actually an ad. So
Okay.
we completed the 2 previously, the paid on call recruitment and pay policy. Those have been addressed, and we're adding on the rural fire protection superior tanker shuttle services. Council's aware, with the expansion of the water services to the rural area, those lines, they were never intended to be of to have the flows adequate to support the fire engines, but and so there has been some chatter amongst some of the properties along that line that are disappointed in how they can't get the reduced insurance premiums because that line is not rated to that fire code capacity. And again, that decision did come to council and the ratepayers at the time is to, do you want to spend an extra X to be able to get fire service? And the decision was made, no, that we're going to build them to this capacity. So a way of attempting to address that potential call it shortfall, just basically reality, and because not all properties in rural area can have fire hydrants or water that can support a fire hose, is to implement a fire shuttle service. And so what the fire department is doing is going through practice runs to make this work. So with our trucks and their water hauling capacity, they're going through exercise to see if they can still meet a certificate and how fast they can load the trucks and distribute the water. So they're going through that exercise. And if they can gain that certification, and it is a big process and it's a lot of work, then we can submit that to the province, and potentially then the insurance companies can look at that certificate and see if they want to actually ultimately reduce rates to those residents. So this is seen as something that I guess the rural folks have been looking forward to, and the group is working on that. We did not put a date on it, just
Okay.
we didn't want to commit to something. They are working on it, but it is a very difficult certificate to acquire. But they are working on it. I think that's a move in the right direction.
Good. No, I'm certainly in agreement with adding that on to there. Okay,
What if you, it's starting to pick up.
okay. All right, we've looked at the zoning bylaw because that's included. And the Parks Master Plan. I know that we we sort of put that off a little bit because we had a few issues that we were dealing with. Are we ready to say that the Parks Master Plan will be completed in October? Maybe not.
So that's, I guess, the plan right now. We're hoping for a few things to fall into place before that is finalized. So we're hopeful, but we're not going to commit at this time.
Okay. Is there anything else then that, go ahead, Councillor King?
Mr. Davis, number 4 under your community services, didn't we bring that forward already, or am I ahead of myself changing those bylaws?
Was that the fees and charges?
Yes.
Yes, so there was a couple that we were going to add. One was for the memorial benches that was never included. And the other one was to help or assist Director of Finance with some other additions to the general fees and charges
So
bylaw.
you'll be bringing that in August, it says? That's
Yep.
fine? Okay.
Yep.
And then I have one other question to
Yep.
do with the childcare needs. Have you set up the committee yet to work on that?
No, nothing has been done with that to date.
So
But that is definitely.
again,
on the
that's been
radar.
moved to October. Should it be moved maybe to November, or any thoughts, or?
We have had some discussions with some of the people that would be, or some of the organizations like the daycare and some of the business owners, I would say. But I still think it's something that we keep on there now and have that ready and prepared to go, because what would happen at that point probably is just the terms of reference, and to get something like that identified and in place, say for the beginning of the year, would even be a good thing. Yeah.
I didn't want to take it off. I just want to know if you had enough time to actually make it happen by October.
Never enough time, but we'll make it work for sure. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So is there anything else on this priorities chart that we need to include? Just what?
Just
the
one change.
Well, there's been a couple of things that have been added. Yes, all right. So can we have a motion to accept the changes as we have talked about? Councillor Poderica, Councillor King, all in favor? Thank you very much. We okay with that?
And then maybe just the motion, not that it's critically important, is to approve the infrastructure strategy. The only reason I ask for that is we post these on the web, and by approving it, we update the date. So so then it just shows that council did review it quarterly. So that's the only change we're actually making on the infrastructure strategy.
Okay, moved, seconded, all in favor? Thank you. So terminate.